not the one who should be
Okay,
giving the lessons.
Okay, going to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Very busy council agenda today, so we've got work to do. Are there any items to add to the open council meeting?
I have one.
Okay.
I have one.
Okay.
Comelec, yeah.
The avenue or the lake?
Comelec, 1710 Comelec address.
Yeah. Anything that, is there any information about it? We try to get staff to be able to prepare it, so.
No, it's a problem with the residents in the area there that are complaining about something, so I'd rather bring it up after. Okay? No use in telling you what it is now and then bringing it up again.
Well, that's the procedure that all of council agreed to. But Councillor Reid.
Mine is just to query to Parks and Leisure about some lights and an event that we were going to do for childhood cancer.
Oh, I felt they're aware of that.
Riverview, the grounds upkeep.
Grounds upkeep at Riverview. Okay.
Why is the grass so high you can't see the buildings?
Yeah, they're not going to plan it for Tree Fest.
People are playing hide and seek.
Anything else? None? Okay. The agenda is amended. Minutes. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Back to you.
Item 2 is a delegation from Mr. Patrick Lavolsi, Regional Director with the Ministry of Transportation regarding the Port Mann Highway No. 1 signage issues, and we do have introductory comments from our General Manager of Strategic Initiatives.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce to you today Mr. Patrick Lavolsi, who is the Regional Director of the South Coast Region of the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. In August, Patrick met with Mayor Stewart and myself to discuss Council's ongoing concerns regarding signage on the Port Mann Highway No. 1 project. And as Patrick is here today to provide an update to Council on a number of Highway 1 changes that have been made to the signage on the project and other related information on the project for Council today. So with that, Patrick has a PowerPoint presentation for Council showing some of the major changes that have made to address Council's concerns. And with that, I'll turn it over to Patrick.
Before you do that, I want to welcome Mr. Lavolsi and thank him for taking on this. I know this isn't normally among the duties of the Regional Director, but I accept that this has been elevated to a level because of the challenges that the community's expressed across the community, and we thank you very much for coming up today to reassure us and comfort us and give us some idea of where this is all going. We recognize that some improvements, some big improvements have been made in the last couple of weeks, and let's see what we have in store.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. And thanks for having me here today and providing a bit of an update. I was just going to provide a bit of an update on 3 items. Guide signage was one of them. I will just do a little follow-up on that. Also, a couple of other items that were brought up was the collector distributor system. That's going to be implemented in next June or mid next year. And then also the Brunette interchange configuration, sort of an update as to what's actually happening with that as well. So start off with the guide signage. When the original project, the Port Mann Highway 1 project, was initiated, there was about 400 guide signs that are being installed out of the whole project on that. Obviously not all at Cape Horn on that, but it sure seems like it sometimes. As part of the strategy, and that Vancouver and Hope are kind of identified as sort of the destinations. So when you're coming from the east, it's Vancouver. When you're coming from the west, it's kind of Hope that you're using on that. The Port Mann Bridge is kind of a cutoff between a rural and a urban classifications, and we treat things a little differently whether it's rural or urban. And when you're in the more rural areas, and that you actually use destinations, and when you're more in the urban area, you start using street names on that. And when we came out with the original signing plan for the Cape Horn interchange and for the corridor and all that, it all reflected that kind of strategy on that. The other thing is that Cape Horn interchange, you also had the Highway 7 and Highway 7B were the designations for Maryhill, for Lougheed Highway and for Maryhill Bypass, and that was sort of a legacy system on it as well. the signing plan was kind of implemented, and again, obviously, a lot of people saw the signs out there, and that's when we started receiving a few complaints and that about people getting lost and not being able to find where they're going on it. So we did have a few meetings on it, and the confusion actually was related to a lot of things, because Cape Horn Interchange had a lot of phases to it, and as it changed, people kind of had the impression that, okay, what I'm seeing now is the final, but it's not really. It's actually an interim measure on that, and sometimes it wasn't quite obvious what was actually being out there. And the construction detours were changing pretty well on a day-to-day basis, so that was sort of a bit of an issue. The Highway 7, Highway 7B, again, they're the legacy names of Low Heat Highway and Mirror Hill Bypass creates a little bit of a confusion. And then the other things about those reference numbers on it, 7 and 7B are very similar looking on that, and sometimes it'd be easier to, if it would have been distinguished between a 7 and a 13 or something like that versus a 7 and 7B, because as most people have a hard time picking that out on a large sign. So some of the things that we did after several meetings and that with the City of Coquitlam and complaints that we received ourselves, is we did agree to installing a few additional signs on the Highway 7B, and indicating, for Low Heat Highway, follow Highway 7, and for Mirror Hill Bypass, follow Highway 7B. And I think there's about 4 or 5 of those that are installed on many of the different approaches to the Cape Horn interchange. And then the other thing that was kind of key is that at Cape Horn interchange, because it's fairly complicated, lots of destinations, lots of streets and everything like that, working with the staff and all that, we decided to incorporate a little bit more of the Coquitlam City Center and the Maple Ridge destinations on that, rather than just following a 7 and 7B and trying to figure out where it goes. Putting a few more of the names of the cities and all that on the signs themselves. So just some of the signs, and most of these signs are actually installed now in the field. So some of these signs were out there for quite a long time and would have all been replaced. Almost all of them were replaced within the last month on that. So I think we've had 26 out of 29 signs all replaced on it. So again, the messaging, getting away more from the top pictures of the 7B only, and we're putting down the names of the communities and all that they're actually going to. And again, I've got a few of these. It's pretty well consistent with almost all the signs that were out there. Have had the different things. United Boulevard to Mariner Way, that was another issue on that, because it wasn't to United Boulevard, it was actually connecting up to Mariner Way was the issue there. And again, Coquitlam Maple Ridge added on there to try to clean up the messaging. And Coquitlam City Center obviously being the core destination here on it. And same type of thing here on it. And then these were the 5 additional signs and 4 for the Mirror Hill Bypass that were added on all the approaches. So every approach now coming to the Cape Horn Interchange, you would actually see these types of signs on there. So, and like I said, out of the 29 signs, 26 of them have been installed. There's a few that remain, and those are going to be opened up or have to be installed when the bridge opens up to 10 lanes. And in terms of timelines, there's a couple things. Obviously, you made reference in terms of some openings this week. We had the direct connection to Mirror Hill Bypass opened up this week. A couple of weeks ago, we opened up the other direction. And likely later this week, we're also going to be looking at the direct connection from Highway 1 westbound to Highway 7 westbound. Should be opening up as well. So, and the signs for those ones are already installed out there and ready to be opened up. So we're going to be doing a fair bit of advertisement on that as well once we confirm what the date is going to be. Again, everything's kind of weather dependent on it, and also fine tuning a couple of things. I think there's some cycling issues that we have to do out there right now as well. So the primary, from the signing perspective on that, I think we've tried to address most of the issues. Not to say that there's not more tweaking that can go on. I think with the new openings that we've had recently and that haven't really received any complaints. I think people are finding it a little bit easier to figure out their destinations on that. So that's all I've got on the signage issue. Is any particular questions people want to bring up?
I bet you these questions are all related to the signage issue.
Okay.
We'll go to Greg.
I can put this up without referring to the existing presentation. I drove through there yesterday. I had a couple of
Okay.
questions. First, I first want to commend the team for the work that was done on Cape Horn. I mean, just the transformation is incredible, and the fact that you've been able to keep it open and keep it running, I think is just an engineering marvel that we've been able to keep the traffic flowing when you've built something that's that complex. It's under science, Karen. And I do agree that a lot of the signs and some of the issues showed. I was actually one a little further along, and I think that that's a really big improvement, giving the destination. And we just next one, and just hold. The question I have is on Burnett, and I had a friend of mine from out of town who came. He phoned me on the weekend. He says, "I'm on my way to your place from Surrey, and I live up in North Coquitlam." And he says, "I think I'm in the wrong spot. I didn't get off the exit at the bridge." And I said, "Well, no worries. Go on to the next one. It'll be labeled Burnett." And I said, "When you get to Burnett, head eastbound and look for something that says Burnett East or Coquitlam." And so he's driving along. He says, "No, I see Burnett North and I see Burnett South." Read the next slide here. Just go to my next one here. And I said, "Well, no. Burnett Avenue runs east and west. Burnett doesn't go north and south." He says, "No, it says north and south." And I said, "Well, if you see an H, that points the other way, so go away from that." He said, "Well, I don't see an H either." So I'm just wondering, you've done a really good job on the Cape Horn, but could we change that to Burnett East or West or New Westminster, Coquitlam? Because there's a lot of confusion coming off at Burnett, and I think what we've done at Cape Horn is really good, but if we could do the same at Burnett, it would be great. And it also raised the question is, do we not put the H, the hospital signs or anything? Did I just miss it, or is that something that's going up later, or do we not do that? I mean, that's there. It is there? Is it in there? Because that's our trauma status. I didn't know if we in fact had those up, if that is something. So I just wondered if maybe.
Well, if it's not, we can. Those are easy ones to.
Yeah. So I just think we should have the east, but the Burnett Avenue. Anybody here? We think of it as an east-west route, and it was a little confusing to have the north-south. I'm wondering if we could, or even do the same, do the New Westminster Coquitlam.
Well, we'll definitely take a look at that. I mean, the issue there with Burnett Avenue was it's always been south and north.
Okay.
Even before before we did any improvements
Okay.
on that. And one of the other aspects is that you've also got Lougheed Highway, which is actually east-west on it as well, and that creates a little bit of confusion for people as well. Because I'm thinking, I thought I was going along Lougheed east-west, and now I'm.
I know, because the highway, I think of Highway 1 east-west, but at that point it is actually probably going more to the north. So it's a challenge because the roads aren't in a perfect grid.
Yes.
But we generally think of New Westminster being west of us and east, so we think of it as an east-west relation. And I even said to him, I said, "Well, look for Highway 7, look for Lougheed," and again, that's not marked up there. So I'm just thinking if we could do something on the Burnett too. The city names, that worked so well when we finally did that at Cape Horn, and we got away, because even though I prefer Mary Hill Bypass, the legacy names don't mean a lot to people from out of town, but they do know they're trying to get to Maple Ridge or Port Coquitlam or Coquitlam. And I think when you got to Burnett, just New Westminster, Coquitlam, and that takes all the confusion out of it, whether it's north, south, east, west, you're going to Coquitlam.
Okay, no,
we could do that, but I think that would really make a big improvement on that interchange.
No, I'll have my staff work with your staff on it to take a look at what the options are there that we can actually use. Absolutely.
But just fabulous. I've had a chance to go through Cape Horn a couple of times, and the new flyover, it's great. It's going to be a big time saver, and it's getting rid of what has been a historic bottleneck there. So good job, and I know there's still more to come.
Well, and I'd have to give it to Gary and to Mike Proudfoot for the Port Mann Highway 1 project. They've done all the hard work on that.
Right.
It's easy for me to say here right now and say it's done. It's looking pretty good. And once that Highway 1 westbound to Highway 7 westbound ramp is open this week on that, I think it'll make a big improvement as well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, it'll improve the Burnett interchange with the amount of traffic that's actually having to get off there. Now they'll be able to directly go onto Highway 7 instead.
Wow, as well. That's another bottleneck, but I'll wait and we'll see how the improvements pan out. I know there've been some concern from businesses and residents in the area about the backing up, but I think until we see the full improvements, then we'll sort of get an idea of what that's going to be. So we'll wait and see how that works out. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to borrow your pictures if I can
Sure.
for a minute.
Yep.
Back up about 2. I wasn't going to bring this up. I was actually just going to email it as you asked us to do. This one is, okay, this is actually going to work. Further on, back up one more, and you'll see one more than that.
Very first one.
That one there. Okay, so now you've got this is the sign. The sign just before this has United Boulevard on it. It mentions United Boulevard, and in fact, all the signs used to have United Boulevard on it. We always wondered why was United Boulevard elevated to such an enormous stature. And now, so the one before this has United Boulevard is in one of these two lanes, and then you get to here, and it says clearly one of them is 7B and one of them is 7. United Boulevard isn't mentioned. I'll go forward one. This one. And this one says, well, clearly 7's going that direction. And the next one, which is in the distance, that's this one here. One of those is United Boulevard, but it doesn't mention it. So if you guess right, if you guess that it's the one on the left, the sign way up in the distance on the top of the off-ramp there says United Boulevard. It says that you get in the right turn lanes, and then it's the direct access to United Boulevard. So I don't know. I think we ended up dropping a ball here, and I remember the discussion we had in the office about this particular sign because it had too much on it, and now it be dropped off United Boulevard. It used to say only United Boulevard, I think. So, but I echo Councillor Hodges' comments. This has now become the most complicated, or the most the biggest interchange, I guess, in the province. And it does an incredible job, I think, of managing a whole bunch of traffic and lots of movements in I count them as 7 different directions in a very short space. And I think will finally do it really quite well. Our concerns now are almost nitpicky about the signage, and we get more complaints about the signage than about any other element of the project. We have more complaints about signage than about the noise, and the noise was significant for large periods of this project, and we're getting close to the end now. We're looking for the final signage. So thank you very much for the improvements we've seen so far. I've got Terry, May, and Luke.
Thank you very much, and what a great improvement. And I'm so glad, especially that we have now the straight shot from Highway number 1 eastbound to the Maryhill bypass, because even until in the middle of last week, the signage there was still quite inadequate to get people who were leaving exit 44 onto and wanting to go to the Maryhill bypass. It was still very confusing for people. And there actually, once you made the exit, there was no wayfinding at all until you were right on it, and there was just a little temporary sign there. So that was a huge problem, I think. So that's great now that the direct access is open. I remember that when we first discussed, maybe it was the first or second or third time we discussed this, one of the issues that was raised was the sign that was westbound on Highway 1 in Surrey, well before Port Mann Bridge, that said entering Coquitlam, when we still had about a minute to go before we even left Surrey and before we got onto the Port Mann Bridge. Is that still there, or maybe we had discussions about it between staff and figured out that it had to be there for that reason? I don't know. Can you explain?
Yeah.
The last time I was there, it was there.
It was there yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll actually make even more sense when we talk about collector-distributor system on that. But the intention of the signage, and that would be that we don't want to install anything on the bridge itself, and basically after the last exit to Surrey and all that you can possibly get on, is at any time at that point you can just say, well, the only place I can get off now is on the other side of Port Mann Bridge, and that is Coquitlam on there. So you're just trying to tell them ahead of time.
So not next exits, Coquitlam, next 2 exits, but entering Coquitlam implies that, or suggests very strongly that you just entered Coquitlam and you're still well in the middle of Surrey, and
You're at 156 of that.
yeah, it's kind of confusing, I would think, to some people. So its policy has to say that way, that you've entered Coquitlam, or?
Well, we can take a look at that one on it. It's just that when the collector-distributor network is set up, we'll have to take a look at how that fits in there as well.
Well, I'd like you to take a look at it. So
Yeah,
that's my,
okay.
it's a much
Oh, no,
more
absolutely.
point today,
Yeah.
so it just seems to be premature identification. Thank you.
Unless we agree to take it over.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, and I guess my only comment is that the problem is that if you try to put it on the other side, there isn't any room, because there's so much signage as you're getting to Cape Horn that you're trying to really tell them well ahead, hey, you're heading in Coquitlam.
Just tell them in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, next exit.
Next exit is Coquitlam, yeah.
Next next 2 exits, Coquitlam.
Yeah.
Not entering.
Okay.
Thank you. Otherwise, great job, and good to see all this explanatory stuff there. Now, thank you.
Me.
It's so exciting to see you Do you know how many times I've gone to Surrey?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Helping pay off the debt of the
My gas bill, I'm going to send it to you. The signs that Craig brought up, and I have been complaining about this for 10 years, and I can't remember now which side of the bridge there's a sign on, but it says, for New Westminster Coquitlam, use exits 40 and 41 or something, whatever the numbers are. But then you get to 40, and you don't know if it's Coquitlam or New Westminster. So the point is, because they're right next to another, as Craig pointed out, one should say, not east or west, but just Coquitlam, and one should say New West, because before you get there, there is a sign that tells you for each of them, but it doesn't tell you which one. It's sort of just guess. That's the big thing. And the legacy names, I would urge, your department to have a good look at that, because in the legacy names, they were in horse and buggies, and it's easy to move a lane, but when you're going 60 to 80K, you don't have much time to change lanes if you find yourself in the wrong one. So I think people are used to the names in the Metro Vancouver area, so I think that's much more helpful. And for what you have done, thank you. And thank you for saving my gas.
And toll bills.
And I'll give you credit for your going to Surrey. You'll get 2 more extra trips. Thank you. The one thing that I noticed, and this happens when you're working on the whole of the freeway, the highway, number one. The fact is that after midnight, you have a lot of times one lane only, and it's not very well lit or marked. The people on the side of the road, of course, are very well lit when they're working, but on the freeway itself, there's no lighting whatsoever, and at night, very dark. My eyesight is perfect, so I have no problem. But the other day, I'm going, I guess I was about midnight or so, I was coming from Riverview over the freeway, and coming past the villa and through there, there was only one lane, and I was in that one lane going 80 kilometers an hour, and there's a car approached me from behind with one headlight, and he was honking his horn, he's flashing his lights for me to go a lot faster. Well, it was pretty dark, and it's pretty hard to see. So anyways, he finally moved over to the right lane, that it eventually ended very shortly, and he damn near got into the accident. But however, I think that you ought to maybe somehow, some way, get some lighting on that freeway, because those yellow strips that you have, they're quite often on there. It's very hard to manage, especially that there's only one lane, and I tell you, if somebody's going by there, even if they had one drink, they'd have themselves a great problem to steer, because at 80 kilometers an hour, I had a great problem knowing where, and coming down to Brunette turnoff, it came on me all of a sudden, with all the equipment working right next to it. I just about missed it. So a little more, I think, attention on the freeway itself as far as the lighting is concerned. But that's about it. Outside of that, I guess when it's finished, it's going to be a great project.
And the 2 lanes off ramp onto Burnett, east, west, southbound, it's west.
Good. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Which is my way of giving you a segue into the rest of the
Into the next one.
Yes.
So the next, we'll go into the collector distributor system on it. And collector distributor, what's going to be happening in about a year's time is that the bridge is going to be going out to 10 lanes, and during that time, at that time, the bridge deck will be actually partitioned into 4 different corridors, shall we say, on that. So you'll have 6 lanes, or I guess 3 lanes each way in the center will be for Highway 1 traffic on that. And then you'll have 2 outside lanes on the bridge deck that will be destined for Surrey going eastbound and Coquitlam basically going westbound on it. And so what will end up happening is that when you're in the Surrey side, there will be actually signage and all that will indicate it. If you want to go to Coquitlam, then you actually have to go into these lanes here, and then that will bring you right into Coquitlam itself. This kind of shows you sort of the Surrey side approach in terms of how it's going to be done. So if you're coming along Highway 1, and where we are here is the middle interchange is 152nd Street, and around between 152nd and 160th Street, you'll start making a decision as to whether you're going to Coquitlam or whether you want to go continue on past Coquitlam on. If you want Coquitlam, you will exit there, and you will basically be on the bridge. You'll have your 2 dedicated lanes that will be going there. At 152nd Street, people coming up 152nd Street will also have a decision on that. If they're going to Coquitlam, then they will go into those lanes, and if they're going onto Highway 1, they will go into the additional lanes. The reason why it's set up this way is that if you take a look at the traffic volumes, it's that 40% of the traffic on Highway 1 actually gets off at Cape Horn Interchange on that. And on 152nd Street, it's about 50% of the traffic there will actually get off in Coquitlam. So because there's a lot of, and you're talking now a larger highway, once you get into more multiple lanes, you have shorter distances for people to start weaving. You want to make sure you start segregating them a little bit earlier on that. The worst thing that happens for bridges is you usually build a bridge, and then there's an interchange on each end of it, and it gets congested. Like it's always a nightmare. It's traffic backed up on that. So the intention for this one here is you try to get them sorted out a lot earlier, get them through there. So you should not have the congestion issues that you have at Cape Horn Interchange up to this point, or at 152nd Street interchange that we've had in the past on that. So that's on the on this side here. And then on the Port Mann Bridge, once you get off Port Mann Bridge, then basically, if you're going to Coquitlam, like you're always in the Coquitlam lanes, then you can go on to Highway 7, Coquitlam Center, or you can continue on down Low Heath Highway. If you've made a mistake and you're in that lane, you can also get off of that back at the Coleman on-ramp on that. So there is sort of an exit there on that. And anybody that's on the main line on Highway 1 goes right through. There is no on and off happening with Coquitlam at that particular point in time. And then as part of that, this is sort of the signage plan that would be implemented there. Again, you'll see between 156 and 160th, there's the signage and all that is actually indicating for Coquitlam is the 2 right turn lanes on that. And then from that point on, basically you're in Coquitlam is how we kind of indicate it. Yeah, the Coquitlam exit is there. On that, yes. And yes, when we do this, there'll have to be a lot of advertisement, marketing on that. It's not going to be an easy thing. And of course, if you do miss it, then your next exit is going to be Brunette, and that's where you have to be able to get off. But again, usually the issue is people that are very used to it. You tend to drive without signs. We all remember, you say, oh, I get off right after the bridge and all that. That's fine. Now you have to remember to get off earlier. My example is in U.S. Minister in Queensboro. They switched the 2 lanes on Stewartson. One goes onto the bridge and they switch it around, and I still do it. I'm still always in the wrong lane. Thinking, is this the right lane? So I know it happens. The signs are there, but it's difficult for people to remember sometimes. So it will be a learning experience on that. Hopefully, after they've done it wrong once, they'll get it right the second time. And then this is the signage for the other end of it again. And again, if you're actually in the Coquitlam lanes, so now you're in Coquitlam on that. So really, the only destinations you have there are Coquitlam City Center, because that is where you want them to go on that. And then the other ones, you'll see that the Burnaby is another destination, because that's the next destination after it's on Low Heath Highway at that point. And then part of this here also talks about the trucks only lane at Fawcett Road on that. And Fawcett Road, again, the reason the wording, the name was used on that is try to get away from using United Boulevard, because then it kind of encourages other people to oh, United Boulevard, that's where I want to go, and then they use it on that. Whereas it is only a trucks only lane on that. And the truckers will obviously learn to use that Fawcett is the exit for that. So that's the westbound, and then the eastbound will be very similar. It'll be much more towards 152nd Street. So if you're traveling on Highway 1, you'll split again, and then you'll also join Highway 7, I guess from Coquitlam City Center, going in onto the Port Mann Bridge. That ramp as well will split into two. One will go into 152nd, and one will go into Highway 1 on that. But we have really good signage. And this is sort of the signage plan for the on that end of it, in terms of exactly how it all is lined up. On the other side, the Surrey side is kind of self-explanatory because if you're in those two lanes, you're getting off at 152nd Street. And again, there is an exit there, just in case you stayed in that lane, that you can also exit and go back onto Highway 1. So again, we tried to capture the destinations as much as we can on this. It looks complicated on here, but it's fairly straightforward. So any questions on the CD part?
I've got an A on CD.
Okay, so our city is like an hourglass, so there's two distinct sections of it. And the old section, the ones that I've just spoken about, where you get to Brunette and it's either New West or Coquitlam, because that's your two choices. On the Coquitlam one, our legacy name for Coquitlam is Millardville at that point. If I'm coming with your new system, if I want to go to that Brunette exit, it's 40 and 41 or whatever it is, I can't get in where it says to Coquitlam, because if I'm a new person and I want to go to Millardville somewhere, I really want to go past that when I go to the Brunette off-ramp, right?
Well, no, you would actually go down Highway 7 westbound then to get to Millardville? Millardville, sorry.
You wouldn't really.
Depends which way you like to get. Why don't we
No,
back
it's
up
okay.
to...
I just...
Yeah.
So,
Way back
okay,
up
so
here, 2 slides.
answer this. Is there still going to be a number 1 exit off at Brunette?
Yes.
Only if you stay in the through lane, not if you get in the Coquitlam
Correct.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, see, that, I think, is misleading to people.
And one of the things that makes this a real big improvement for Millardville is that follow that red line from the bridge,
Yeah,
and
I
then
get it.
take the left swoop. You're at Schoolhouse 20 seconds later. It used to be 2 minutes of looping, and now it's 20 seconds will be in Millardville. So most people, I suspect, will now be using low heat rather than going all the way to Burnett.
And still, people that are looking for Coquitlam Brunette
Yeah.
or Hoot, they're going to be off. So.
You're right.
It's a schoolhouse now.
Right. Thank
Leave
you.
this one up the one I wanted.
Yeah, so on that, I would imagine that this new configuration would take a lot of pressure off the Brunette interchange, because there's going to be an exit if you're going westbound off the Port Mann Bridge directly onto Highway 7.
Yes.
So it'll be probably the more efficient way to get into Millardville. We'll be taking that exit rather than taking the loop around. So I imagine that will be more efficient that way. And is that foreseen that the volumes on the Burnett interchange will be falling quite a bit?
Well, absolutely. Well, particularly right now, since there is no direct connection from Highway 1 to Highway 7 westbound on it. And some of the pressure that we're seeing right now at Brunette is caused by that. So I think you'll see some of that volume dropping off, particularly the Highway 1 onto Brunette North. My north. Yes, yeah. That volume will probably drop off because some of those people now will have taken the direct route on.
Okay, the signage question I have has to do with the signage from the Surrey side heading west. And it didn't appear that there was any indication that the 7B could be reached by getting into those lanes, getting into those 2 lanes, until you're actually off the bridge and onto 7 heading east/north. Is there any indication that 7B can be reached?
Good point. No.
That way?
I don't think it's actually shown in here.
Yeah. So you'd have to know that you got on to 7 heading east, and then from 7 heading east you would loop back on United Boulevard to head to 7B. But you'd have to know that well in advance by studying your maps. There's no indication here that 7B can be reached.
Yeah, because the
here there's one indication for 7B there, the top right, over to the right. So once you're off and heading north/east on Highway 7, then there's finally a sign for United Boulevard.
Yeah, and part of the reason that it's signed this way is normally the signage is for what the next road is that you're connecting to, and the next road that you're connecting to is Highway 7.
Yeah. Okay.
But we'll take that into consideration about the 7B, and like almost 7B follows 7
Yeah,
east or something like
something
that.
like
Yes.
that. One of those
Yeah.
sorts of signs. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Good. And while we've got this one up here, I mentioned this to you in my office, and I'm still trying to understand. If you're wanting to get to Coquitlam, the lower part of the hourglass, the old Coquitlam, you're going to probably want this loop here, and you're going to be the main part of it. And yet all of the direction signs to get there will mean you'll have to go to Burnaby. This is Burnaby here, Burnaby here, Burnaby here, and up here at this point, that's where you make the decision whether to go to Coquitlam or go to Burnaby. But there isn't anybody that's going to be making that decision that's going to want to go to Burnaby this way. They're going to stay on here until, the week larger, maybe going to Lake City Industrial Park. But even those would think you could go to Glarden. So I can't imagine anyone at this point wanting to go to Burnaby. And yet their only choices are Coquitlam Center or Burnaby. So I wondered why this wasn't Malarco or Coquitlam Malarco or so now it's Burnaby Coquitlam at this point.
Yeah, and part of the issue was that you're actually in Coquitlam. It's sort of like trying to give somebody a destination that this way to Coquitlam, but you're already in Coquitlam. In that regard, I think that was sort of the issue that when they were actually doing the signage on it. It's the next destination really going along Highway 7 is actually Burnaby on that. Because you're already in Coquitlam, and I think that's why they actually chose that type of signage on it.
And I could see that, but if there was a spot for Malarco, it would seem to me it's here. It's there. Because
Or New West.
all of the people going to Malarco are taking this route. If they're staying on, unless they're staying on Burnett, which is going to be, I think, very
That's right.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Millardville is not a destination.
It's our legacy.
It's not a municipality. That's the problem on it. Yeah. There is. We'll take a look at that. And I recognize what you're trying to say on that one. There is other ways of trying to sign for that, because we do the same thing on the upper levels highway, about like Ambleside and those type of things. There are different areas on that. Yes, yeah, but they're signed differently in that regard. We actually use the blue and white signs in terms for the community type area on that. I think Guilford, we actually do on the east side as well on that. So to try to, because it's not the city of Guilford. It's just a section of Surrey.
Overdale would be the other one.
Yes. Yeah.
And so is the sign that's blue there, is it meant to be blue?
No. It's we have to change that one, and I think they got the colors wrong. It probably looks fine on the original, but no, it was just a little mistake here.
I appreciate the explanation for Fawcett Road, because when I first saw that a couple of months ago, I couldn't figure out why you wouldn't use Boulevard Trucks and how I accept your wisdom on that.
Okay.
Anybody else on the CD stuff? Okay, so one more.
And the next one is the infamous Brunette interchange. And this is actually the current situation in terms of the, if you want to call it the interim mode right now, where we've actually added the Highway 1 eastbound off-ramp and the left turn off of there for the new signal. And also we've added the new dual right turn lanes on there. Adding the dual right turn, like having a signal obviously at the south end, I guess. It does kind of go east-west here, doesn't it? At the south end is obviously creates a little bit more traffic congestion and things like that. The reason that the double right turns in is so that we can adjust that timing a little bit more. So that's actually improved the situation. And the other aspects of it from a safety perspective was, for us, was the queuing on the highway. And now what we've done is obviously created more storage, better storage actually for both directions on that. And once the highway's completed further west on that, there will be a better storage area now for the Highway 1 eastbound off ramp as well. So this is sort of the interim state. Brunette interchange is being looked at quite a few times in terms of different configurations and options. I think we met with your staff on it a few times, and the city's actually provided a few possible options as well thrown in there. The biggest issue with Brunette tends to be that anything we do at the interchange on that also affects what's happening in the city on that. Like no matter how we can streamline the interchange, grade in Brunette is a problem on that. It'll always be a problem. The Blue Mountain and Highway 7 is always going to be a problem as well on that. So it all has to be a big package in that regard. And so any improvements that we end up doing here has to be tied to some municipal improvements as well. We've taken a look at some different options and all that. We're kind of getting ready to sit down with the city and to kind of discuss those. But right now, also with the Patilla Bridge, and I know Coquitlam just kind of recently joined that because it was one of the options. Actually, talks about a new bridge basically from Surrey to Coquitlam, and as part of that, it really does affect what you do with this particular interchange. You know, whether you use this interchange or create another interchange beside it to connect up to that new connector. So right now we're actually on the working group as well with on the Patilla Bridge replacement project, and so we're kind of providing a bit of input into the technical aspects of it. How does that affect the highway here and the interchange operations? So I think everybody knows the timelines for the Patilla Bridge is they've got about a year that they've got to make a decision in terms of going and doing a replacement or not. So probably in about 6 months' time, and now we're going to know whether that Surrey Coquitlam crossing is going to be a viable one and something that they'll be pushing forward with. So that's kind of where it stands right now. The project itself, the Port Mann Highway 1 project, is everything wet. I guess basically the whole western section from the Port Mann Bridge to Cassiar Tunnel will be widened out to 8 lanes or 6 lanes at Cassiar Tunnel. By December is when we're anticipating that's all being opened up on that. And then following next year, then by mid next year, there'll be the CV system that will be installed around the Port Mann Bridge, and probably some finalization of paving along the western section. There's by December in that you'll probably have a fair bit of new pavement, but it probably won't all be completed. I think the weather, we're getting to the fall season now. I don't think it's quite going to be completed all this year. So March and beyond will be the final time for that. So that's the status update right now on Brunette. We're not building anything yet. We're still doing a fair bit of planning and all that. And I think really the next step right now is going to be sitting down with, besides the Patilla Bridge, what's going on, is actually sitting down with the staff and start talking about what some of those longer range options are going to be. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. What you have on Brunette Avenue right now, it's a living disaster. Could not be any worse. Trying to get through Millardville onto the freeway or to New Westminster, whatever it is lined up with trucks and cars, and I'll tell you, trying to make a left-hand turn to go onto Blue Mountain is impossible. What are we looking at in the next few months? Is there going to be a change, or is it only going to get worse, or do we have to live with it for the next 10 years?
There's probably a middle number there on that. In the short term on that, the only improvements you're going to be seeing is what's happening on Highway 1. The double right turns have just been installed, and there'll be some cleaning up, obviously, of the ramps connections. At this point in time, that's, yes. And the operations right now, the interchange doesn't end up being necessarily the bottleneck. out of the whole network on that. It has to be tied to something else on that. So it's really a bigger project to take on. Like, we can do all the improvements we want at this interchange, but unless something happens on these other two connections,
What
it's
we've
going to
got
be much more
now,
difficult.
the businesses are suffering in Millardville, the residents are suffering in Millardville, and I'll tell you what, we cannot continue with this for the next few years. I can tell you right now that something should be happening in the short term. We need to rectify this problem. We created a problem with this freeway. We created this problem with Port Mann. Why haven't we thought about something? I know that somehow there's some figure of $100 million that either Coquitlam had to put up by the provincial government. The provincial government decided that they can't put up $100 million. So Coquitlam will have to live with it. Well, oop-de-doo. Coquitlam doesn't have to live with it. It's a disaster, and something must be done, because it's only going to get a hell of a lot worse, and that's all there's to it. I'm getting a lot of calls from Millardville. I go through there quite often, and I see cars lined up all the way past Woody's pub to go to New Westminster at the freeway. It's a chaos. It's crazy. So how does the provincial government ever think for 1 minute that somehow Coquitlam should live with it? Well, I don't want to live with it. I'm sorry.
And I don't think anybody's saying that you have to live with it. I mean, we are looking at different options for that
Yeah,
interchange.
but how many years?
I can't really say at this
No,
point.
that's exactly. But it could be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. What is it? There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what bothers me. What really bothers me. The fact is that somehow one end of our community is going to take the brunt for something that the provincial government decided to do. Right, wrong, or indifferent, you know, the $3 billion, but an extra $100 million that they should have done on Brunette Avenue, you couldn't afford it. So, you know, so let the community and the people in that area suffer. And I don't think, you know, it's crazy.
Okay. Along similar lines, your words were the interchange isn't the bottleneck. What's the bottleneck?
It's the whole network on it. It's basically, we can streamline. We can get rid of all the signals at this interchange on that. At the same time, there's so much traffic coming through here that it gets bottlenecked. Highway 7 at Blue Mountain is sort of with the one intersection on that, and Braid and Brunette on the other side, the rail crossing. You know, like the whole United Boulevard extension. I mean, again, that's a New Westminster project, or I should say that was a TransLink project, and obviously it's got dropped at this point. But that would have made a big difference in terms of trying to make the improvements on the south end already, and then trying to tie into some of those improvements. But doing all those improvements here on that, again, it all gets bottlenecked at a Braid and Brunette with all rail crossings that stop traffic on a regular basis, and then just create almost a gridlock now.
Well, on that, you came up with the words. United Boulevard extension, I think, would have gone a long way here, because I don't see traffic backed up across Braid and Brunette when the line turns red. I see it at Brunette and the Mountain. I see it at Brunette and Lougheed at the Mountain, where we end up with gridlock because traffic has no place to go because it's stuck somewhere else. The two traffic lights on the overpass I don't think are helping much, but I don't know how much they're contributing to the challenge. I think the challenge is in New Westminster. And at the same time, we've got a regional hospital, and Councillor Hodge mentioned it's the trauma center for this region, and we can't get to it for hours every day. It's a bottleneck. Essentially, all lanes of Brunette all the way back to, as Councillor Secor mentioned, that past Logie are blocked, and emergency vehicles can't get to the regional hospital. So that's my biggest worry, is that we're going to have that challenge hit us in a very big way. So I want to just express our feelings of urgency that this has to get fixed. We don't know what else to do because we can't get to New Westminster. That's one thing, but we can't get to a regional hospital. That's a much bigger challenge. We're working with New Westminster right now still on the Bailey Bridge as the potential stopgap, but in the end we're going to need a bigger solution.
Yeah, and that was brought up as well before, and one of the things that we were looking at also was get some preemption and all that for the signals. That is to try to get a bit of a green corridor for any ambulances and things like that do want to come through there. I mean, again, that's sort of an interim measure on that. It's not obviously the ultimate solution on that, but definitely tried to improve that the response, emergency vehicle response.
Anybody else? Thank you so much. A couple of months ago, this council was wringing our hands in frustration with a number of issues along the corridor, recognizing its great improvements. Bridges and highway improvements are great; they're enormous for our community, but the signage was a challenge. We've answered a lot of the questions that we had, solved a lot of the challenges. You and your team, thank you so much for coming out today.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And if you ever want me to come back and give you updates and all that, I'm more than happy to come back.
If you wouldn't mind coming back, we can schedule it now, beginning of November, to tell us about the Brunette overpass reconstruction.
The schedule for it.
If you get a call from Surrey, you'll know who it is.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
And we just have to update our GPS.
Yep.
No, something else I have to learn.
Yeah, update your GPS. Okay.
Item 3 is a delegation from Reverend Dr. David Spence. He's here to speak about the Riverview Memorial Service. I'll just ask Mr. Spence.
Dr. Spence. Good to have you, David.
Your Worship and Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to bring you up to date. You have a report in your package of the memorial service scheduled for the 17th of November, Sunday afternoon. I don't need to go through it. I trust that you've already done that. Since this statement of purpose was formulated, a couple of other things have since happened. I took the opportunity to meet with Charles and Dom at Social Services of the province and had a worthwhile discussion with them. And this week they informed me that this statement of purpose would be going to the Riverview Lands Project Board for their information and possible endorsement. The other meetings that I've had is with other city staff, and I appreciate their encouragement and support in this project, in particularly meeting with Lanny at the Works Yard, who is the Urban Forestry Operations Manager, and this morning with Carrie Haynes at the cemetery caretaker in Coquitlam. Both of them were very encouraging of the opportunity for a memorial service. One of the things that I learned from Carrie is that in addition to the 1,000 headstones of those marked at the Riverview Land Cemetery, there are some 200 others who have been laid to rest in the Coquitlam Cemetery from Woodlands and Essendale and Riverview before the Riverview Land Cemetery started in receiving bodies in 1958. I did not know that. I see some head shaking that, yes, indeed, there's some awareness around the table. I took a walkabout through the cemetery on Sunday afternoon and appreciated that the grass was cut in the cemetery, except that some of the headstones are still obliterated with the way the grass grows over the edge and needs a little bit more further groundskeeping. I've spoken to a few other people in the community and have some volunteers who will work with me on putting together the service. I have yet to speak to someone from the Coquitlam First Nations, the Jewish community, and the Islamic community, and some of the other chaplains from different denominations. I have a couple of questions that I would like to pose in terms of the service, but maybe I could pause there if there are any questions that the council has to ask me. And if
With respect to some of the folks being buried in Coquitlam Cemetery, and that those were some of, this came upon me many years ago, but so I wondered who was actually in the cemetery at Riverview. And I was told that many years ago, some of the folks that died, families didn't acknowledge them, and that they weren't around, and therefore the city buried them, and some of the folks buried in Riverview, the families do not want to acknowledge that anyone's there. So when you say the headstones are obliterated, some of the headstones didn't have names or anything on them at Riverview.
Okay. In my walkabout, I did not see any names that did not have names on them. You may be correct that I have missed some of those. And a lot of the people who were in residence in Woodlands and in Essendale Riverview were non-persona.
That's right.
And they, at that time, were ignored, rejected, and now I think in the 21st century we're taking a moment to acknowledge all of them. Certainly we can't do that by name. The names of the people who are laid to rest are not available unless you went around to all the headstones and took the names off. But
that's why a lot of them got buried in Coquitlam, and there's some in Minor Street too, up in the cemetery in New Westminster from Woodlands.
Oh,
well.
yes.
And hard to figure out names and that.
There are a couple. There's one in Riverview that's a headstone named Jane Doe. And there's one in the Coquitlam Cemetery that is unknown, buried in the remains were found in 1930 and buried in 1938.
There's a lot of them that, well, they'll all be there anyhow when you have your service, I'm sure, in spirit.
Yes.
Thank you. Early on, David, you referenced something called the Riverview Lands Project. There's proliferation of groups around, but that's one I haven't heard of before.
The Riverview Lands Project Board is a provincial body to which Charles and Dom, who work with, who have oversight of the Riverview lands and work with shared services, are in communication with. Who sits on that board, I'm not sure. They apparently are meeting this week and will be receiving a report from them.
Shared services. Yeah,
Part of shared services. Part of shared services.
Yes. No, I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
A couple of questions. As part of the service that I would like to put together is consider the planting of a tree in on the grounds of the cemetery. I spoke to Mr. Haynes about that possibility, and he saw no problem if it were in the Coquitlam Cemetery. The headstones that are in Riverview Lands Cemetery occupy about a third of the land that is set aside for a cemetery, and will be in perpetuity set aside for a cemetery, and will be cared for as well. But I'm wondering on this occasion if there's any thing I should be aware of about not to do that. There are oak trees, as you know, along that road that leads into the cemetery. And I was thinking of an oak seedling in part of the cemetery that is not currently being used.
I can't.
First Nations.
No, First Nations.
First Nations would be a
Okay.
consideration.
Okay, yep, I
But
will
I
raise
think
that with
The group that you're working with, the shared services, could deal with that.
that as well. Okay, I just wanted to flag that with this
We plant,
opportunity.
we plant lots of trees, but they're always on property that we have some control.
Yes, I understand Coquitlam owns the property, but is managed by the province.
No.
No?
The province
So which
owns
one are we
it.
talking
It is the province that owns it.
The Riverview Cemetery is the province.
Okay, I stand corrected.
All 244 acres are owned by the province and operated by shared services.
But we love it more.
Yes. Well, some of that love went to the provincial government with the 2 MLAs.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, on Riverview, is that where you want to plant the tree?
Yes, on the Riverview.
That's fine, yeah. I guess you have to go to the province on that.
Yes, yeah, we'll do
We
that.
have really no jurisdiction over there.
Okay, I will raise that question with the contacts that I have with shared services.
Perfect. Thank you so
Okay.
much again for your work on this and other things you
See you there.
Thank you.
take on.
We'll look forward to keeping in touch with the council and with the committee. Thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing you almost a week after Remembrance Day.
Item 4 is a delegation from Mr. Jim McNeil. He's here to speak regarding the Quarry exploration permit.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I have a copy of a petition here that we collected at over 3.5 days at Minnetonka Park on people who are opposed to the development of the rock quarry opposite the Minnetonka Park in Coquitlam.
I assume that's a copy because the original would go to the people that are managing the proposal for this province.
I believe we sent them a copy as well from the original.
Thank you.
Say what jurisdiction we have before it gets into all this. But everyone in the room is in it.
Okay. One of the members of council has asked me just to say a couple of words. The province, of course, is the body that regulates mining. The city has an ability to regulate certain business types in our community, but it doesn't have the ability to block the current application, which is an application to drill. So as such, the city, someone could come on the property if the province permits them and drill. The city does have a say in the next phase, which is actually if someone were to try to open a gravel operation or any other mine, the city would have some say at that point. But there's almost nothing we can do at this point other than express our concern to the province, which we have so far, if we go public. Do that. But
That's our understanding as
Good.
well. Thank you, Your
thank you very
Honor.
much.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon, Mayor Stewart and Council. My name is Jim McNeil. I live at 3729 Quarry Road. I'm a professional engineer. I've been on the executive at the Northeast Coquitlam Ratepayers Association for several years, and been a resident there for some 34 years. We gathered names for this petition at the quarry, at the Minnetonka Park, and this was the organized petition drive. We also organized public commentary to drive traffic to the to the ministry website to comment on this, and we heard back that they received quite a few responses. We also have a Facebook page with over 1,000 page visits, likes, and comments. We've had good media coverage, and generally the upshot is that you'll note it's tough to get unanimity on any issue, but in this case, everybody we approached was against it. This is an opportunistic application. Basically, the applicant has no vested interest in the area. He's looking for free land, and chose the timing opportunistically as well. In speaking with the applicant, he made it very clear that he was interested in reopening the existing quarry at the other end of Quarry Road because it was too expensive. There it is. Okay. The application area is very short distance from the recently approved Partington Creek Neighborhood Plan area, and it's sandwiched between the Pinecone Burke Mountain Park and the Minnetonka Park, with residential properties on the west, and diagonal to the proposed Gillies Field. Here's showing the Partington Creek Partington Creek Neighborhood Plan and the proposed quarry area. Imagine that as a slash of gray. Here is a close-up of the site. The park is the provincial park is to the north, with the Minnetonka lands to the southeast, and the area on the left is or west is mostly residential. A little closer up, the current zoning allows for resource extraction, but from this, anyways, the definition of resource materials does not to be particularly clear. The city's official community plan lays out extraction areas, and this area is not within that area. This defined area is down here, well outside the planned extraction areas. This is a greenfield property, and after the passing of the Partington Creek Neighborhood Plan, the approval of it, this proposal of a quarry site, although in line with the Northeast Coquitlam Area Plan, effectively says that kneecap is out of date and should be addressed relative to its neighboring Partington Creek neighborhood. Gillies Field is in very close proximity, and Minnetonka Park fronts onto it for a distance of 1.3 kilometers. This is the one of the neighbors, which is the Swiss Canadian Club, and they would abut on the property as well. All their waters are sourced from wells on the property. You can expect that even the discussion of a quarry is going to depress current and future property values. You can expect negative press, reduced real estate price premiums, and the only method of removing product from the area is going to be via dump trucks on Quarry Road and probably more of the residential roads past school zones and playgrounds. And I urge Council not to rely on the existing policy of not allowing or requiring that these materials be removed by barge. I think that could be readily challenged. You can expect residents' complaints, and expectations are going to be people were expecting other things because this is not part of any city plan. Noise, dust, and commercial traffic by designated parks and recreational areas will only make it worse. This is a new subdivision going in right next to the site. And the application is incorrect in several areas, but this is one of them. Essentially, it says that nobody lives here, and that's not true. These are samples of neighbors in direct proximity. The water flows in the area. The surface flows on the western part of the property flow to the southwest into Derry Creek, and on the eastern side of the property, they flow via periodic or seasonal water courses into the park, the Minnetonka Park. The subsurface flows to the southeast and out into the Fraser Valley, and flowing right through all those layers, including the granite. The proposed site here, the flow into Partington Creek, as you'll note from the Partington Creek Watershed Management Plan, has the 4th highest water quality in the lower mainland out of 32 creeks. It's an active salmon spawning creek. The west side of the proposed site is drained by Derry Creek, which feeds in directly into Partington. And the subsurface groundwater also provides base flow into Partington Creek. The quarry operations generate waste rock and particulates, and rain on that waste rock dissolves and mobilizes the contaminants, generating acid rock leachate. This moves through the water courses and degrades Partington Creek as well as others, as the groundwater as well. And once that groundwater is contaminated, it's almost impossible to decontaminate. As for endangered species, again, the Watershed Management Plan is an excellent resource. We have no desire to repeat the Coquitlam River quarry problems, and this could very easily last for the next century if it goes ahead. The application area is actually higher and higher in elevation and has steeper slopes than claimed in the application. That means there will be minimal areas for waste containment. The east side has several undocumented water courses which flow via 5 culverts along Quarry Road or under Quarry Road into the marshes at Minnetonka Park. The subsurface flows are year-round, though, into the park, and the contaminants will flow into the park. This is a picture of the area, and this whole area here along the side will be a gray gash. And on the left, this is the quarry, and on the right, this is the park, as seen from Quarry Road at Calgary. The park, because the site is upstream, the contaminants have to go into the park. This is a view of the entrance to the park from the quarry site. There are water wells on both sides of the proposed site, so you can also expect deterioration of air quality, breathing problems, particularly amongst children and seniors. And the Minnetonka Park and the planned recreational uses for Gillies Field will attract a lot of heavy breathers. Members of the Save the Park group with ministry experience advise if drilling is allowed and test results indicate commercially viable resource, it's going to be very hard to stop the next steps towards the development of the quarry. So it has to be stopped at this level. We want to also prevent any future liabilities accruing to the city. And this also, if successful, may establish a precedent and start gravel trucking from the existing quarry. First of all, well, it goes to the ministry. It's not a ministry initiative. And let's see, in follow-up discussion with the ministry official, he would like to know from the city what the future plans for the area are. and what the impact on the city would be if the proposed quarry goes ahead. So we're asking council to send a clear statement to the ministry that a new quarry does not fit in with the city's plans for the area. Here's an issue where we have unanimity from area residents, and it's good for no one. So please let's stop this application at this point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to go a little bit long, well, quite a bit longer, but this is an issue that I think all of council is concerned. I've got 3 people now, May, myself, and Lou, speak at this time.
Well, it's no secret that this sort of crept up on all of us a while ago. And what disturbs me mostly, and I have answered some emails from folks in your area, but not all, because the information dribbling to us has been dribbling. I think that's probably the best way to say it, because it sort of caught everyone by surprise at summer break. The way I see it right now, there isn't much of a benefit to Coquitlam at all. And within the Metro Vancouver region, we, Coquitlam, were asked to accept probably 25,000, I'll say that's sort of a median number, of additional residents that were planned to move into the Metro Vancouver, and our regional growth strategy reflects the new neighborhoods that we're going to be building up there. And this will impact, although I know it's not within the regional growth strategy boundaries, it still will impact. It's immediately next to our city boundaries. I assumed at first blush that it was going to bring a lot of truck traffic through the neighborhoods, which would be unbearable for us because we have enough problems right now with construction vehicles, etc., going up Burke Mountain. The fact that it's close to Gillies, which is supposed to be a major park, is a big consideration. We have babies, lots of babies being born. The air must be good up on Burke Mountain, but we're going to have lots of children, lots of young families, and having this as a truck route is not a good plan. I have since heard that they plan on barging it. What qualifications they need to be allowed to barge this, I do not know, and hopefully later we're going to hear from our planner on some of these. My biggest things are 2 things that have happened in the last few weeks is, of course, the big storm and the deluge of rain that we got all of a sudden, and the amounts of erosion and sediment problems that we had already up on the mountain that staff spent a lot of hours trying to deal with. That is a huge concern with the quarry up there. The leachates that you mentioned from the rocks going into our creeks, the water quality, the spawning grounds. I mean, it's all just a big mess. I personally, of course, am an animal lover, so I think we've taken enough forest away from the wildlife that we have, and right now they're coming down. If we keep taking the forest, there's even going to be more and more of them meeting their death for our financial gain, and I don't like that at all. I do not think that this is an appropriate use. I have to be guided by what the rules and regulations are, but this is not something that I would plan to have in my city in this location.
Thank you. And all we're really looking for is for the city to express clearly to the ministry that this is in no one's interest, and they're looking for input. The bureaucracy's response can only be what has gone in past. Council has to express where they hope the future to go.
But I think we also need to be fully informed from our staff. This is our first meeting back, and you've attended our whole first meeting so far. We haven't got to the experts that we have on staff that will tell us what we can and can't do, and what the pros and cons of this application are. But thank you, and thank you for your tremendous community support. That is really nice to see.
We've had a lot of support, yes.
Okay. I thank you very much as well for coming out.
Thank you.
I don't support this at all. This is this community have delivered more than our fair share of the region's gravel, region's aggregate for decades. There are people in the room who've been involved in the delivery of aggregate in this region all their lives, and this doesn't fit in with our plans for a very livable community in this century. I also have some frustration about August. There's 2 reports on our council's agenda today, but both of which come up during August, both of which seem to be taking advantage of August as a great time to get the minimal public input possible. So I'm frustrated by that. I'm going to suggest that our letter to the minister also make some suggestion that the public consultation period cannot include August. If you need 30 days, 30 days doesn't include any of those that are in August, because we have too many people that are just not able to participate in that. And even if it's a proper application, it casts a bad light on the application if you're trying to reduce the amount of public consultation. In the end, and I don't think trucking is the issue either. I think, as you point out, whether it's truck, barge, or whatever, this is the wrong place for a gravel pit. Yes. This isn't where we're going to put the gravel pit. I'm not going to support that.
Thank you. Just anecdotally, one of the geologists that visited our petition site said that in the Lower Mainland there's about a 70-year supply of current existing gravel resource, and some of it's being exported to the States just to find markets for it. 70 years supply. That was what was reported, yes.
I'm glad they got the public consultation done in August.
Thank you.
We got 3 more questions. 3.
No, actually, what's happening, since you called me last, and I had spoken to quite a few of the residents in the area, and there's no benefit to this quarry for Coquitlam, none whatsoever, except a lot of downsides. And so I've got a notice of motion tonight. I'm going to ask the council to waive all the regulations and pass it tonight, and go to the Metro Vancouver for that board to pass the same resolution and write a letter to the ministry. And since then, I did call MLA Reimer, Robinson, Doug Horn, and also the minister, Pollock. And of course, Pollock was on holidays, Reimer's on holidays, Doug Horn is on holidays till September, see. But certainly Selena Robinson called me back in about half an hour, voicing her concerns. She was going to have her body of MLAs to fight against this. So certainly we're getting a lot of action, and this is something that can't be at all a plus for Coquitlam of any way, shape, or form, except a great big black cloud, a downside for Coquitlam. So I did phone the manager about 3 weeks ago, after you called me, to have the notice of motion drawn up, ready to be served. And today's the first meeting, because we didn't have a meeting in August, so I'm going to be serving the notice of motion tonight. And it's signed by Councillor Craig Hodge and myself. So certainly, hopefully that it works out, and hopefully that we get to the bottom of it, because I know that the fact is we cannot either issue a permit or anything else, but we can certainly have a say and have an early say. And the matter of Vancouver, because the matter of Vancouver Park, I'm sure all the board of directors in there will pass it.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, actually, I ran into, on that other point, I ran into Councillor Reimer and her dog yesterday at the SPCA walk, and she's fully aware of the issue as well. And I don't think we'll need a notice of motion. I think we'll have a consensus on, I suspect we'll have a consensus on transport this year. Craig and Terry.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you again. It was sort of a long time, well, not as long, but certainly a resident of Burke Mountain, and I'm certainly, when I'm out on the trails and in my neighborhood, I'm hearing from residents up there. But I think this goes beyond a Burke Mountain issue. It's certainly an issue that's going to affect all of us, particularly a lot of people in Port Coquitlam. And the challenge that we've heard is that this is something that's come from a really being dealt with at another level, but it very much affects the citizens of Coquitlam. It has the potential to affect the citizens of Coquitlam. So I think that it's unfortunate that we as a council have not had a chance to meet and discuss this. This is our first meeting, and we spoke with each other. We spoke with staff, and we're looking to sort of see what we can do. And I think that the mayor is correct. I think that when we actually get our opportunity to have that formal discussion, I think that we will probably be very clear in our message. But we are just one of the people that will be consulted along the way. I think the challenge for us is that I think that we in Coquitlam have done our part for the delivery of gravel for many years. We have operators operating in the city of Coquitlam. We're aware of the challenges of operating gravel, and particularly as development catches up. Our gravel operations have a long history here in Coquitlam, but it's always a challenge as the people move closer to where that activity is taking place. And I would say that the people that and the operators have done their best to work and meet the challenges. But this will open up a whole new set of challenges in an area that is going to quickly be developed. We're planning in Partington 15,000 people at high density. That's a city the size of Prince Rupert is going to be built in an area that's not much bigger than Mundy Park, and it's sitting right next to this. So there will be, or there would be the potential for a huge impact in that area. And so I think that it is on. I think we need to, and I'll be discussing with our colleagues. And Councillor Sikora has already mentioned that we're going to sort of try to send a formal message, and as formal as we can at this point in the consultation process, just to let them know that what our thoughts are, and certainly what we're hearing from the citizens of Coquitlam. So I thank you for the work that's been done, and an excellent report. I think it was very well laid out and concise, and certainly will be taking some more time to go through it. And I thank you again for the work you've done so far on this.
Thank you. And the ministry is looking for input now. They want to find out where the city stands.
They're about to hear.
Excellent.
We get it.
Thank you very much.
You'll know tonight.
Yes. Hey, we're not ready to
Anything
roll.
else?
One more, Terry.
Sir?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Good to see you face to face.
Yes.
Talk on the phone, by email.
Yeah.
And boy, after a year and a half of chairing the Coquitlam River Aggregate Committee and thinking we've kind of got those issues under control now. Things are working very well. The river's clean. The operation of the aggregate operations on the Coquitlam River is running efficiently. All the different players are satisfied with the way things are going. It's providing economic benefit to Coquitlam without having large adverse impact on the environment. And then to see this thing come out of left field in the middle of the summer, it's pretty shocking. And certainly on the surface, it seems like it just does not belong there. It's this proposal for next to Minnetonka Park, next to Dewey's Trail Park. We've got planned next to a huge new community that we've been encouraged to build, to take our share. It doesn't seem to be right. Part of what we've done at Coquitlam River Aggregate and the committee and the direction I've taken is that I want to see all the responsibilities that people have lived up to. Somebody asked me about why I was in favor of more detailed planning. I thought I was a small government person. I said, well, I'm a law and order person too, and I want a due process, and I want to make sure things are done correctly. And I raise that in conjunction with this because, well, I agree with everybody here so far, and I haven't heard from Councilor Nicholson and with you that this certainly seems to be something that is not in the benefit of Coquitlam or the region or certainly the park users and prospective residents in the area. We haven't heard from everybody on this. So I'm happy to send a message that at first blush this thing seems to be not what we want for the area. But like I said, for the Coquitlam River Aggregate Committee, we've been balancing the economic benefits with, and we know what the economic benefits are, with the environmental concerns, with the whole regional livability concerns as well. So going forward, I'm happy to sort of send, hey, first blush, this doesn't fit with what we see, but I do want to see going forward make sure that we understand exactly what's going on here. You made some statements about limits of the aggregate supply in the Lower Mainland, 7 years left. I've heard that it's actually quite a bit less than that. I know in the Fraser Valley area, there's big concerns that the aggregate demand is going to double over the next couple of decades, and they don't have nearly the supply in place. It's an important part of economic development. So I want to make sure we understand all of this going forward as well. I can see based on the surface information right now that this causes some problems. But going forward, I would certainly want to see us certainly if this gets to a stage where we have to take a look at this from a point of view of a business operating in Coquitlam, then I want to know all the facts, both sides. I haven't met the proponent. I haven't talked to the proponent. I haven't talked to anybody at the ministry. I've certainly heard from the citizens of Coquitlam. I hear that loud and clear, and that's why I'll support a preliminary statement of some opposition. But I want to also put a caveat that I want to get the whole story before there's some definitive, if it starts proceeding. I'm not going to be stuck just with this one preliminary statement of opposition going forward. I want to make sure we know a lot more about this.
Our position as residents of the area is essentially that it's irrelevant whether or not there's a gravel resource there. It's an inappropriate location. There are designated locations for gravel extraction. Why not use one of those?
Okay, well, we've heard examples from each of us.
Thank you.
We won't have heard from all of council until we hear from Councillor Nicholson, and then we'll have heard from us in aggregate.
Okay.
That's all.
Oh, this is rude.
Really fast. It's going to take me a couple of weeks. It's going to warm up.
Yes. It's not going to leave any stone unturned.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. Let's rock.
We're just back from vacation. I don't have any bad jokes,
Thank
but
goodness.
I'll work on it the next time. Basically, just about everything that everybody said. They simply look forward to an early discussion by council directly on point, decision, and a clear message to the ministry as to feelings of this council at this moment based on the knowledge that we have. I agree, Councillor, on the other, maybe some other things that we need to hear. I'd be surprised if they're all compelling, but I want to hear them before I make a decision. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. All three of those issues were pretty significant to the community, and so we allowed ourselves a little bit more time. We'll get down to council's agenda.
Item 5 is report of Acting General Manager, Parks, Recreation and Culture Services related to Rochester Park conceptual design process, and we have introductory comments by our Manager of Recreation.
Well, happy September.
Thank you. Before we begin on the Rochester Park introductions, I wanted to introduce you to our new Parks Planning Manager, Andre Isakov. Andre joined us in July and jumped right into some of the planning processes. Prior to joining us, he was the Manager of Planning and Community Development for the Township of Harrison, the Village of Harrison. And he's thrilled to be coming back to Coquitlam, which is his roots, where he grew up. So I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you to Andre, and he is here to answer any questions you may have on the Rochester or the Smiling Creek reports. So with Rochester Park, Council is receiving a report today for information purposes outlining the park conceptual design process. And the purpose of this report is really to give you the heads up that we're beginning on it. The internal work is beginning in the next couple of months. It will take 2 months or so to look at the tree inventory, the topography of the site servicing, some amenities, and look at how that park fits into the context of what's recently been done in the Millardville Neighborhood Plan and Southwest Coquitlam. So staff are intending on reporting back to you later this fall with preliminary findings, and at that time we will outline the next steps, which will include the public consultation and the engagement for Rochester Park. And I think it's important to note that as this planning process is starting, there is still some other work going on in that park, and the report highlights the Como Creek Stream Daylighting Project, which is also taking place there, and some potential trail enhancements that will result from that work. So that overview will take any questions you may have. Thank you.
What do you guys think? Richard Neal made it's funny that these two reports would be back to back because this used to be a gravel pit. And so part of what we're dealing with now is a reality that is inherited from its history in the mining of gravel. I spent some time down there as a boy in that ravine. I actually toured it a couple of weeks ago again on foot, and was reminded of a pretty spectacular little ravine, quite a big ravine, quite a wide ravine. I've got a few questions, and they're primarily related to the daylighting. I don't know how we ended up with a daylighting project in a park by engineering that I suspect I'm concerned about the extent to which that will limit our use of the park as a park, or potentially could end up changing the way in which the re-establishment of the park facility. We don't have any parks in Millardville. We have no park between Brunette and Austin, actually the full length. This is the only park we have from Brunette to Austin. And it's not well used because, as is mentioned in the report, only a little bit of it was developed as park, and the rest was blackberry bushes and bean and leftover gravel. I'd love to see this be a spectacular jewel in Millardville, something that gets really used as parkland. And I want us to explore daylighting as one of the things that could be done in that regard, but I don't want the daylighting to be done by engineers as much as by parks planners. And I want that, I wonder how that, I guess that's my question.
I think for the answer to that question, Your Worship will ask engineering. It is their project, and they can hopefully give us a bit of background of how it got to where it is.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Why don't we hand him a microphone? You can introduce yourself, your current role, and that way that the reporters will know.
Yes, is this on? My name is Ian Radnage. I'm acting as the GM of Engineering and Public Works. And the daylighting project for the ravine, historically the ravine was an open channel with substantive flow, and we culverted the bulk of the storm sewer through the ravine. And then today, I guess, we get some base level water trickling into the ravine from the neighboring banks, groundwater, that kind of thing. The idea here is not to restore it to a raging torrent like maybe it used to be, but to establish some base stream levels. It's an opportunity for an enhancement project sensitive to retaining it as a ravine, but to maintain some base flows. So what we would be doing is not getting rid of the culverting of the entire storm sewer. We'd just be reintroducing some of the flows to the ravine so that we can have a healthy, moderate level of water flow at the bottom of the ravine. So that's the intent. The intent is also to use that as a credit. We're talking to fisheries in terms of getting some credit for future compensation when we do ditch infills and that kind of thing. We normally have to look for compensation projects, so this is an opportunity to do it in a constructive way and working with our Parks Department.
So that credit hasn't been spent yet, it's for future consideration.
It's for future, yeah.
So I wonder if we can then marry the two, the planning of potential daylighting with the planning of the park, and let's do it, I think, in a way that allows the public consultation to be less limited by an engineering project. That would be my main comment on it. I look forward to seeing a great little park developed there. But Neil May Terry.
I want to welcome Andre. I should point out that unlike the village of Harrison, here we make the hot water thing. It's not provided naturally. Sometimes it's made by us. Sometimes you created it yourself. Yes.
Okay.
You're warming up.
Yeah.
That's another level above all the aggregate jokes.
That's way better than the
I
aggregate.
was feeling dozy before I tried to come at myself. Before the meeting began, I went around and talked to 2 or 3 staff and talked to them about the really wholesome compliments that I got yesterday from somebody about the consultation process that we went through for the sport complex or whatever you want to call it these days. But it was really gratifying to hear all that. And now I'm looking at Rochester Park. I don't, Your Worship mentioned public consultation, but I don't find it in the report. There's a fairly short period described here from September to November. I don't see any. When I look at the next item on the agenda, there is a very brief mention of public consultation. I would really like staff to expand on just exactly how we're going to find out what the public would like to see. We're talking about internal visioning. Public resources like parks can't be internally visioned. They do somehow attract friends. As we see in the potential gravel mine, the public is prepared to tell us what they think. So I'd like to hear whether, is this just something that didn't quite make it into the report? Is there more to come?
Sure, yes, Your Worship, for you. The vision behind this is sort of a first step. So the next step, when their report comes in November, that would be, that report will outline the next steps, which would include the full extent of the public consultation as well.
At which point there would be still lots of latitude in the design.
Absolutely. At this point, this is very sort of conceptual kind of visioning for outlining what's already there, and perhaps some of the limitations in terms of topography, because topography does limit the design options. So that's really what we want to look at first as staff is what are some of the options and limitations within the topography first.
Good answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May.
Thank you. I think the timing's good for this, thanks to engineering. We're going to be moving forward with something. I'm looking at your map on attachment 3. And so I'll jump into the hot water already because number 3 under your key planning is building and pool removal. Well, sorry, I don't believe that we don't need a pool there. And I've heard all the comments from staff before about outdoor pools and they're losing their cachet and we shouldn't be doing them. But if you take a look at this map, and I've put Poirier in a great big spot for myself. Pardon?
You're on attachment 1. Attachment 1.
Oh, sorry.
Page 5. We're all looking for attachment 3 of the facility.
That was just to see if you were with it. There's a lot of babies in all those houses. There's a lot of children there. And Millardville, from Austin down, and from Lougheed, there's no pool facilities anywhere. We have Eagle Ridge Pool, and although I guess staff, when we did the pool thing, the pool report, they thought that perhaps we were going to let Eagle Ridge Pool just go at some point in time. Well, let me tell you, living across the street from it through this summer, which was so hot, it was the happiest place on earth. We had nothing on Disneyland there. There were kids all over the place, parents. I mean, it was just a great spot to be, because not everybody can jump in a car and head up to Sassamat or to another beach. There are lots of folks that 2 cars just isn't in the equation. So I would hope that when you go out for public consultation, which I think in this neighborhood is going to be key, that you don't remove a pool from the options. I really think we need to discuss it. Global warming, I don't know. I think we're going to get warmer and warmer summers. And learning to swim is a must in a coastal community like ours. So I really think there should be walkability and there should be swimming lessons. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry. Yeah, thank you. The mayor zeroed in on the questions that I had about the daylighting project, and I believe we've already had a presentation at this committee several months ago by a group of residents from the area who were concerned about daylighting, and it may well be that the engineering people took notes there, but Parks and Rec didn't, and there was a big group of people who were complaining about the daylighting and were worried about the impact on water tables and flooding and things like that. I believe at the time there was also, I might have expressed the opinion, or maybe just thought it, if I just thought it, I'll express it now, that if this is being done, that Como Creek is being daylighted to enhance fish and riparian habitat, that implies a setback of some sort, an official setback where no park development can take place whatsoever, has to be preserved in a natural way, and that in turn implies a diminishment of usable park space in an area where the mayor has said is in desperate need of park space. So I would think this daylighting, even if it may have some future environmental compensation benefits, is something we should take a very serious look at. If our primary goal is more park space for an area that's really underserved, then daylighting Como Creek to enhance fish and riparian habitat sort of runs contrary to that, as far as from what I can see at this initial look. So that's my big concern. Okay. Now I also think I should mention that several of us on council were at Millard Middle School a few months ago for a breakfast project, and several of the teachers there took us by the arm and led us outside and said, wouldn't it be wonderful if part of this area here could be made into a community garden of some sort? So I just want to let you know that that school community is really behind something, having a community garden there, which as well may be run contrary to having a broader, more accessible park for everybody. But I want to give that as a heads up and to at least alert you to the fact that perhaps when consultation happens, to make a special effort to contact the school community there, because they have some strong opinions about the area as well. Okay.
Definitely covered it.
Yes, they did. They really wanted it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. You know, what are we looking at? I mean, I know that you're moving ahead, but what are we moving to? What do you see in your own mind? What is going to be the end? I know you have to talk to people in Millardville and everything, but where do you see us going with this? I mean, there's got to be some vision in the Parks Recreation. Where are we going with this? What is it going to look like at the end? What's going to be in there?
Your worship, for you, I think the whole the plan here is within the next few months, this whole process would provide us with some more information so that we can come in to council in November and have that laid out, having had that internal discussion around what exactly is the vision, what's even possible.
So you're going to have some public meetings with residents in the area?
Your worship, at this point, again, we're more of that, and I think that when we come back in November, we will outline the process for the steps, and that process, the next process, would then include public consultation. So if you think about the next report that we have on Smiling Creek A, this is sort of almost a preamble to that process.
I just hope that you don't come to us in November and say, oops, we need a consultant, to tell you what to do. I mean, really, I've been consulted to death. Okay?
Well,
and every time,
perhaps almost.
Every time we have if our department heads can't think for themselves how to run a department, that we got a problem. We hire a consultant to tell the department head what should happen. Come on. I was in the hotel business for many years. Had general managers and managers. Did they hire consultants for them to tell them how to do their jobs? They'd be out of a bloody job, because if they don't know how to do it, then what do I need them for? Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's a strongly held opinion. Craig.
Well, I just say, I mean, I understand the challenges that we had around the pool. And it's unfortunate, we've lost a pool in an area that doesn't have a lot of pools, and we've lost a lot of pools in Coquitlam. And I missed the days as a youngster out in the pool, but I seem to forget about those rainy days when I didn't want to go to swimming lessons out in the rain. So maybe memory's a little selective, but I have heard from residents, and we've had a really good, warm, hot summer, and so I've heard from a couple people they missed the pool. So, I think that we need to have some sort of a water element there, whether it's possibly a spray deck. I know it's not the same, but I think we have to have a water element there. And I think we will probably hear that when we go out to consultation. I also would hope that you might come through to the Millardville Revitalization Committee, and we have a meeting coming up in early October, and another one sort of mid-November, and be a chance to sort of get some input from them, let them know what the plans are right now, and particularly around the daylighting of the creek. And that presents us with some opportunities and some challenges. And I favor, opening up areas for fish habitat, but I also recognize, and I find myself agreeing with Councillor Neal on this particular issue, that we do have limited park space there. And so as good as an, idea that is, and something we want to try to achieve in opening up and daylighting some of our creeks, I think we have to be careful of what the impact will be to the park. And I'm happy to see these two projects are being done in conjunction with each other, and I think we have to make sure that both are a good fit. People near creeks and opening up and daylighting creeks near people. I want to make sure that this is the best thing for both. And I think certainly we have areas where we can do a lot for fish habitat, and I want to make sure that this will serve that purpose, not just get us a credit, but actually be beneficial. And at what cost? Not just the financial cost, but what will the cost be in terms of the people downstream from that? And we've heard from residents who are concerned about how that water would be managed. But also, I don't want to see us get into a situation that an area of the park that people are currently able to hike in and play in suddenly becomes, found itself behind orange snow fencing or something. So I think those are things that we need to address in that consultation process. And I think we have to know going in what the impacts would be, so that we can then see, do we have enough land to work with in an area that is underserved? The Millardville area is definitely underserved by parks. And I think, as I said, I think we have to see what's our primary goal here. I think it's great we're doing the two together, but I think we have to have one goal. What is our objective on this? And I look forward to hearing back, and I'm happy to see that we're beginning on this, and I'm sure we'll hear the usual, that we want more green space, that we want more structures, that we want washrooms, that we want sport courts. So I'm sure that we will hear there are certainly a lot of needs in the area, and it will be a job to balance those needs and come up with a workable plan. I look forward to hearing back on it. Thank you.
And as far as the pool in the rain, the lifeguards still had to show up. So I have many memories of Rochester pool in the rain, which was about half the time, and that meant that you had one or two children in the water, because you always had a couple of dedicated ones. It was raining on the lifeguard.
Move receipt of the report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'd invite all of council and any other members of the community to take a walk in the foot of the ravine, to come at it from the foot of the Care and up that way. You'll find perhaps our most diverse, topographically diverse parkland in the city, I suspect. It's really quite something. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is report of acting General Manager, Parks, Recreation and Culture Services related to Smiling Creek A Park Planning and Design. The recommendation is that the committee receive the report from the commission.
Move receipt.
Second. Discussion?
Same as well.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you. Item 7 is report of General Manager, Engineering and Public Works related to sidewalks on North Road north of Como Lake Avenue. The recommendation is that the committee receive the report for information.
question.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. This looks like a wonderful plan, and the one unusual part about it is that the sidewalk's going to be built in Burnaby by Coquitlam and maintained by Coquitlam, and kind of raised my eyebrows. And I think a germane bit of information that I need to know is the fact that there's no homes in Burnaby fronting on this because it's all green space. But is that dedicated park space there in Burnaby, or could that be developed by Burnaby and then they could take advantage of our sidewalk? What is the status of that green space there?
I'll wait for this whole one.
Through the chair. Yeah, it's
I want to know.
it's a natural area. I think it is park area, and I don't believe it could be developed. They call it a conservancy area.
Yeah.
Stony
My
Creek.
recollection is it's conservancy area.
And what does that mean?
It's in the green zone. RGS.
RGS Conservancy, but it's not a dedicated park area at this stage?
I'm not sure. We can get back to you.
Yeah, I'd like to know that because, I'd like it to be dedicated to park to give me more comfort in building a sidewalk in Burnaby. I just would. So I'd like to know what the status of that land is.
Okay, contemplate that. Councillor Reid.
I don't have any problem with this. When I was at Oakdale last year, the residents there was a lot of conversation about this, and for reasons I guess you're going to go into, as they say in the report, it's just so difficult to build it and so expensive if we had to on our side, that this is a very logical conclusion. So I'm not having any problem supporting this.
You? I have no problem with supporting it. My concern, though, still is the speed. The speed as we go up and down North Road. It becomes, particularly as the Evergreen line gets under construction, and once the impact of that construction comes upon Clark, and we start to see people using Chapman North to divert Broadway, I think it's going to get incredibly worse. Every council member that's attended the Oakdale picnic there has stood there with Oakdale members talking to them about these cars whizzing by, and we've watched them. They do go by way too fast at the bottom of a hill. They want to gain enough speed to go back up the other side of the hill, so they're hitting 70 and 80 at the foot. I don't think it's an enforcement issue. I think it's more, enforcement would help, but I think we can do some road design. I appreciate the bulges, the proposal for bulges. I don't know if there's another mechanism. I don't want to suggest a stop sign, but I don't know if there's a transfer or the Port Moody Circle or something like that. But from my perspective, it's speed in a park zone. This is a park. It should be 30, and the speed is 80 and 90. So I get frustrated by that.
So, Your Worship, as you know, we're planning to put a corner bulge there and make it as narrow as possible. The road already is fairly narrow for most of it. It only is a 6-meter road, but there's no parking on most of it, so that makes it, I guess, appear quite wide. But we're going to try to narrow it down. I think the crosswalk, adds some more visual indication that this is a road where pedestrians are, and perhaps construction of a sidewalk also will indicate that it's more of an urban situation with pedestrians.
And perhaps we could look once again at signage. I don't know for that. Neil.
Thank you. My concerns were about traffic safety. It makes all kinds of sense to put the sidewalk where we can put it, except that it's serving homes that are on the other side of the road. And we've got a couple of crosswalks. But I would suggest that it's very unlikely that kids coming home from school are going to use the crosswalks. They're going to walk in the best sidewalk that they can find until they're across from their house, and then they're going to cross the road. Corner bulges, slow things down. I don't know what other. First of all, I would expect to see more crosswalks. There's the corner of Gilroy, might be a logical place. But it seems to me there's 7, 8, 10 housing units between crosswalks. In comparing it to the depth of the cul-de-sac I live on. Well, I guess there's the traffic code idea that, well, that's an intersection and there is a crosswalk there, it's just not painted, but you have to do a lot more than paint a crosswalk to get a driver to pay attention. The bulges is one thing, another might be the kind of speed limit that we have on thermal. On more in the breach, anything else, but there's the neighbors who are using the road, that's others. Sometimes speed watch can go out. So I'd look for as many ways of controlling the traffic in there. Define the entire length of that street as a pedestrian zone. It's not that far if you drive it at 30K instead of 60K. What's that going to add to your trip time? 40 seconds.
Through the chair, certainly we can look at more signage. I believe it is 30K at the park. We can look at whether we should add a crosswalk to Gilroy, crossing North Road at Gilroy. We'd certainly make it that you could get from Gilroy across to the sidewalk. As far as people using it, is about 750 meters all the way from Chapman down to Como Lake Avenue, so it is certainly worth your while to cross the 10 meters or so to get over to the sidewalk, rather than kind of be in traffic all the way down the road. So, and we did sort of, when we were taking a look at the road, we did run into a few residents who.
Well, you should be more careful.
Well, we talked to a few residents. We were walking. We weren't driving. They thought it would be a good, just anecdotally, our feedback from those residents was that it would be better to be on the west side. So.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, man. Okay. If we could, and perhaps to answer Councillor O'Neill's concern, we can put some stamped concrete with a Q or a Coquitlam logo or something in the side. From this point forward, we should claim credit. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Hodge.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm very familiar with the issues around Chapman and down this corridor, and I had made note here of also thinking that there should be a crosswalk at Gilroy. I think that one of the challenges is that certainly this is going to provide a safe travel pedestrian area, but one of the challenges also is, and we found in other places of the city where we've built pedestrian overpass, the thing is to get people to actually take that extra distance to get over to the other side and use it. And so I could just see somebody coming from Jefferson to Gilroy not crossing. So I think we want to make sure that we put the crosswalk so that they have points at which to cross. And I think while we're at it, possibly a traffic bulge there as well. Just I know it's not the end all and be all, but I think that where we do as much traffic calming as we can, that Chapman North Road to Como Lake is a rat run. It goes back to my days on the traffic calming committee. So we have to, I think, address speed and safety, and I think the sidewalk goes a long way to doing that. I think this is a very creative approach to resolving this issue. And I guess my question would be: is it technically? I guess that the boundary is the middle of the road. So half is in Coquitlam and half is in Burnaby, and so. What do we have to do to work with them in terms of speed signage and any traffic calming measures such as bulges? Is this something that we can work with, or are we had any of those discussions with our neighbors?
Through the chair, we've certainly been in contact with Burnaby. It's gone. Actually, the idea of the sidewalk has gone to their council. They've approved it in principle. We can talk to them about other measures. There's not that many opportunities for bulges because the road is quite narrow on the portion north of Jefferson. It already is, I think, 6.5 meters wide. It's ridiculous. So it's already really just one lane in each direction. We couldn't really narrow it without, I think, we couldn't narrow it any more than it is. On the southern portion from Jefferson to Como Lake Avenue, it's the same situation. The only place where you can put a bulge is on our side because it's only one lane wide for south boundary. We can talk. I'm in contact with their traffic engineer, and I can talk to them about other ideas.
What's going to be a crosswalk there? We should try to get this crosswalks, get visibility of the signage for crosswalks.
If you deliver potholes.
But no, I'm pleased to see this go forward, and I think it's an improvement that the neighbors in that area have been asking for, and I'm happy to see that we've been able to work to find a creative solution to it.
One of our main spokesmen on speed and
Okay,
traffic.
thank you. Sorry, I think you should drive up through Maple Ridge. They have marked crosswalks, and I've never seen anything like it in any other city. And I can tell you something, if you notice them, they don't look expensive, they're decorative, they're very, very pleasant, and very visible. And I think that, you know what, I noticed that they had them in a couple places, and they seem to be expanding it in more and more places. And I can tell you some that we should be copying. I'll tell you, it's a great crosswalk, believe me. I think for the motorists, it catches their eye. It's just a great thing to have. And you know, Frank is now in charge there. He used to work for the city of Coquitlam, so there's no reason for us not to phone him and be able to talk to him. Okay?
Are you talking about the rainbow crosswalk that they just put in?
They're not rainbow. They're
Yeah, I've seen the rainbow.
No, not rainbow. No. They're very, 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 very.
We put a similar crosswalk, I believe, just recently on Brunette Avenue. So it's maybe a different look, but it's the same kind of technology.
But it's a great thing. I'll tell you, it catches my attention and catches every motorist's attention. Then of course, long before you even approach it. Okay? It's a great thing. Thanks.
There we go. It's like we're all in agreement here. That's on a receipt. Motions to receive after giving all that suggestions. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much for that. That's it for engineering.
Oh, now the famous, my favorite department.
You have now surpassed Animal Services as his favorite department.
Mary, working your way up the stormwater.
So happy.
The animal side of tourism.
What are you doing?
Keep going, you guys. Keep going.
Haven't looked for that one.
Item 8 is Report of Manager of Economic Development, Biannual Economic Development Activity Report, January to June 2013. We have introductory comments by the Deputy City Manager and a presentation by a manager.
Thanks very much. Through the chair, Coquitlam continues to be a desired destination, both locally, regionally, and internationally. Our development statistics started out a bit slow this year, but we've seen very strong construction activity over the last number of months, and we're actually trending above the record levels that we had in 2011 right now in terms of construction values. So there's no rest in sight for the planning and development staff. We're also seeing a very positive trend in our industrial vacancy rate as well. Our industrial lands are starting to be absorbed, so there's many positive things that continue to be happening within the city of Coquitlam. David has a short PowerPoint presentation, and we'll run through some of those highlights from the first 6 months, and with that I'll turn things over to David.
Thank you, Mr. Dumont, and thank you for your time, Your Worship and Council. Before we get going, I'd just like to introduce Colleen Herzen, who started in the Economic Development team in March, and so she's been a great addition and making me more sane. So welcome, Colleen. So we've got a short presentation today that will buzz through, kind of look at the market outlook, do a bit of a market overview, what's happened to date, and then we'll cover some of the economic development priorities and initiatives that we've done so far. If you look at the BC economy overall, they're predicting moderate economic growth, and they adjusted it from about 2% to 1.6% growth. That being said, most of the financial institutions still had it around 2% for 2013. And again, 2014, 2015 to 2017 is around that 2.5% mark. Metro Vancouver is performing well in relative to other areas of Canada and the province, predominantly because of those three factors. We have our exports market, strong exports market, international investment interest, as well as immigration numbers are continuing to be strong. And as you can tell, those are some of the reasons that are driving the growth in the area. If we look at residential, on the residential side of things, if you just look overall, Coquitlam's permits, as Mr. Dumont had mentioned, are performing about 10% above January to June 2012. So that's good news, and a lot of that's to do on the residential side. If you look at the housing starts, again, they predicted a decrease of 9.4% for Canada and an increase of 2.1% for BC, and they've adjusted those numbers a little bit, but basically, if you look at what's happened in January to June 2013, it's just decreased on both sides in that 10 to 15% mark in Canada and BC. Coquitlam, again, the building permit values for residential increased by about 27% compared to 2012, so those are really good numbers for us. And again, as Mr. Dumont mentioned, we're on pace for the record numbers that we achieved in 2011. If you look at the commercial side, and it's broken down into two categories, which is the office and on the retail side, Coquitlam, Metro Vancouver, it's gained momentum. There's a lot of interest in office market. In the past, there's been a pent-up demand for office space in the downtown market particularly, and that's why there's basically the largest investment cycle in office space in downtown core in the last 20 years is going on at this moment in time. And it equates to about 418,000 square meters are under construction at the current time. As we look into the future for Coquitlam, we have opportunities for growth. We have some small inventory increases with Ani Group's project just down the road on the corner of Glen. And also, as the Evergreen line moves forward, we may have some opportunities to leverage that asset, infrastructure improvement for office space along those corridors. If you look at retail, again, retail's been a very active market in the Metro Vancouver area. Seeing steady leasing and sales activity. You're seeing a lot of, basically anything that's in a good location, it's got high traffic, it's going to be filled in pretty fast or absorbed quickly. And we're getting a lot of interest from national, international, or U.S. firms, i.e. Target, that are moving into the Canadian market or the BC market over the last few years. Again, those are, for Coquitlam itself, it's driven by population growth, investment growth. It's a place to be. It's got all those factors that we've discussed before, location, etc. And then there's just a list of some of the retail-type businesses that have moved into the area in 2013. So those are good, some nice, well-known names there. On the industrial side, as Mr. Dumont mentioned, sales and leasing activity has actually been, it was quite strong in Q1, leveled off a little bit in Q2, and a lot of the advocates said there that was due to the provincial election and people were holding off their investments until that was settled. But overall, total industrial sales are forecast to be about $800 million for the area, and that's down from about $830 million from last year. So it's still on pace. That's pretty good sales. Now for Coquitlam, we're getting a lot of sales and leasing interest again as the Port Mann Bridge gets closer to completion, and there's some incentives in there as well. But we've seen our vacancy rate decrease substantially in the last probably year and a half, last 6 months, but compared to a year and a half ago, it's gone down quite a bit. So, and then we've got some of those businesses there that have moved in. And if you look at it overall, what we're seeing is a lot of smaller bay type facilities moving into Coquitlam, relocating perhaps from Burnaby and other areas like that, or even from the Tri-Cities, they're looking for the next stage, and they move from 2,000 to 5,000 square feet. And it makes sense, again, because those market rates are pretty low at them, well, competitive. They've come up in the last 3 months. Switching it over to economic development priorities, a lot of our focus is in business retention and expansion, and on marketing material development, as well as business attraction. We'll go through those fairly quickly. Obviously, the key here is to work with our local business community and help them in any way that we can. In the first 6 months, we had about 50 meetings, and we did about 50 assistance requests. And those basically requests come out from meeting with the businesses. It might be who to talk to at City Hall regarding potential expansion for building permits, or it might be who to talk to at the Chamber of Commerce. So those are a really good way for us to help the local business community, and in the long run, fill a gap that they may not have time to look into. And if we can help them there, maybe they'll grow a few jobs as they move along. And then, obviously, working with the Chamber of Commerce is very important. We support Small Business Week and Social Media Mondays, and then from time to time we work with them to help promote some of their seminars and workshops. And as well, we put some feedback into the Business Improvements Committee where appropriate. For marketing materials, you may have got you've seen a few of those. We sent out a memo last week. Just had some new, our tourism sector fact sheet and our retail wholesale sector fact sheet. That essentially completes the partnerships of the series with community planning. But I think probably the brochure we're most proud of is the business resources brochure. That's something that we can give businesses when we go out to them, and they have local, provincial, and federal resources that might be able to assist them on various things. So that was quite endeavor, and we know that as soon as it was printed, we have to add more to it. So it's a changing, evolving thing. And then again, we launched the travel guide in April, and to date, we've distributed about 17,500 copies of the travel guide. So it was received very well. On the business attraction side, again, the whole objective there is to promote the community to, consulate offices, particularly their trade officers, provincial, federal ministries, real estate professionals, et cetera, et cetera. We did 30 meetings in the first 6 months and roughly 10 presentations. We also participated in the 9th Annual BC Real Estate Convention trade show, and then we did some strategic marketing in some of the like Office Space magazine, relating it to the Evergreen Line growth, and BC Tech magazine opportunity to promote QNet, et cetera. So, and we'll continue to look for those where they come, where they're feasible. And lastly, just when we look at the priorities, we'll continue with our business retention expansion efforts and business attraction efforts, building those relationships and developing the marketing materials that carry out our key messages that we've developed thus far. And with that was really quick, but we'll go open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much. Gary.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a good report. You talked about the small businesses moving to Coquitlam, like A-plus countertops and Rochester power, those sorts of things. Now, so you're a point person here, and you're dealing with these guys quite a bit. So I want to know what you're hearing from them about Coquitlam, specifically the issue that's always dogging Coquitlam is the high rate of business tax that we have in comparison to our residential rate. But maybe they don't see that. They only see the absolute figure and compare it to other communities and see that it's in the middle range. So what are you hearing from them? Is that an issue that they bring up at all?
Through the chair, through Councillor O'Neill, frequently they bring that up. When you look at the mill rates, they point to it quite often, and that is it can be a bit of a detriment for us attracting businesses to the community. I realize there's been some work done on tax burden, but when it comes down to it, the businesses will always look at the mill rate first. So, hope that answers.
Yeah, it's still there. And the other question I have has to do with the distribution of the 17,000 travel guides. Operating under the headline, "The proof of the pudding is in the eating." What impact has this had? Do we know? And can we know what impact it will have? Is there any way that you have anything in place that's going to measure the impact?
Through the chair, Councillor O'Neill, that's a very good question. Most of the guides have been distributed through visitor information centers. We've also got some distributed through Vancouver Airport. So we didn't get into all the visitor information centers because it costs money to distribute in the BC regional visitor information centers, so the costs were just a little too much for us for an opening project. As far as feedback, there's no official, I can't say there's official, besides we know that we're getting feedback from people, the accommodations providers are distributing the guides. There's people that are commenting to us that they've seen it at the airports. There's people that are asking for more orders. In the Eastern Fraser Valley, we've filled, they've asked for more boxes and those such things. So I guess we could look into trying to get some more measurables there for you, but essentially for us, we're banking it on the amount of guides that are going out and the comments that we're having. Overall, the tourism stakeholders and the sector players are happy that they have something that they can use. I mean, it's all on the front counters and stuff like that. On an aside, it actually is a useful tool for our business attraction efforts as well. Because a lot of the businesses, when they're recruiting a specialized employee or they're moving, they want to know what they can do in the area for recreation, what's the schools, et cetera, et cetera. So it covers some of those things. But if you have any suggestions on better ways to, I'd be happy to look at them. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll ask one.
Go ahead.
A while ago at the Celebrate Coquitlam, when we were talking about tourism, you said that there were businesses that were interested in doing some things that could help us, like road rallies and different stuff. I mean, Coquitlam Center sort of takes some of them from us. But do you get, when you're interviewing new businesses, is that a biggie? Like, do they want to come and be involved and in the community and
through the chair to Councilor Reid, that's something that we do try to, like on the assistance request side of things, quite often we will try to connect businesses. Sometimes they want to support a particular cause. Maybe it's kids sport, or maybe it's play on hockey tournament or something. And so what we'll do is we'll put them in touch with those people, because if the event's successful and they want to support something, especially if they're a new business, that gets them engaged within the community and built in that community fabric.
Well, that was it. I was at the chamber through the summer with a group of people that were chamber members, not all from Coquitlam, but the one thing that they had to say was that, you know, I said that I was talking about the Coquitlam Center one, and I said, so if you came into a city, why would you want to promote a road rally or something? And they said, because it's the best way we meet all the players. The people that are going to come to the road rally are interested in our industry, so we would sell to them, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, there's no better way. It was an interesting thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Motion to receive. Second. Move. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
We do have 3 other business items. The first from Councillor Sikora related to 1710 Como Lake Avenue.
Okay, the 1710 Como Lake. What happened, I got a call on a weekend, and this gentleman that known me for about 30, 40 years said, I'd like you to meet with me, and that's how I'll go meet with him. Well, lo and behold, there's another couple came in, a young couple, and they own a house at 1710 Como Lake. Now, what has happened, that there was a Greek family that owned that house. They apparently got a illegal suite in a house, which you find they admit that it's an illegal suite. They also had putting a bathroom in, and they got a permit for plumbing, but never had the final inspection, which is a problem, I guess. But also, they went to sell their house, and they discovered that they could not sell the house because no bank would give them mortgages, because they said it was a grow operation. And yet the report in here clearly says they found no grow operation in that facility. So, you know, here's a situation, and these are a very young couple. I mean, they're really fighting the whole world. They are a nice couple. The mortgage is $400 and some odd $1,000, and they want to sell it. They can't sell it because nobody will give them a mortgage, and nobody will approve a mortgage. So, you know, there's got to be something that we must be able to do. I mean, just because they had a legal suite doesn't mean to say that they can't build it to conform or take the door down, whatever. Very simple. That the council some years ago passed a resolution that it could be done very easily. Okay, they were given a notice to do certain things within 20 days. The owners are Greek, or they went to Greece for 3 months. They got a 20-day notice. Well, they're in Greece. They didn't even know about it. They came back, and oh, behold, this is what's happening. So this young couple bought this house, and they're approved by mortgage. You know, no problem. All of a sudden, and this report very clearly stipulates that they found no drugs and no growth, marijuana grow or anything else in there. The house is 30, 40 years old. And yeah, it doesn't conform to today's bylaws and a few other things, but doesn't mean to say, you know what, that you know, those days weren't good enough, and so we must close them down or whatever it is. There's got to be some way of rectifying this problem. You know, there's a young couple. They're very, very nice, very meek and mild. You know, hard-working couple. They're probably in their 20s or early 30s, trying to, you know, keep the head above water, and they're faced with this situation. So this came to me. They've left their both phone numbers in here. And like somebody in the city hall, you know, there was no grow operation in there, but they perceived that there might have been. You know, but they didn't find nothing, and there was nothing there. So I think that this is one of those things that ought to be cleared up. And I'll leave it with you, and there's their phone numbers. Somebody should call them and maybe have a meeting with them or whatever it is, because frankly, the way it sits right now, the only thing they can do is either rip the house down and build another, which they can't afford. You know, and maybe build the lot's big enough for a duplex or another house with a cottage on it, whatever it is, but they can't afford it, and they can't sell it either. So, and yet there's no stipulation that they found any grow operation in the place. So, I think that and yet this couple was able to buy and get a mortgage. They move in, and behold, they go to sell it a couple of years later. They can't, because every bank said, "Oh no, it was a grow operation." And yet in the report there's no such thing. So I think it's one of those things that they got caught up in a situation that's not a good situation. I think we need to help them clear it up. 1710 Como Lake.
Okay. Well, with any luck, the media won't report the address, because we're trying to make sure that the house doesn't get tarred and gravelled as a tarred and feathered. We're back to gravel.
They don't mind that address being known.
Mr. Dumas.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not aware of the issues around this property. It sounds like there's a number of different potential things that could be happening here. So if you leave it with me, I'll follow up with by law enforcement and building staff, and we'll see if there's a solution.
And I saw the director of planning writing, making notes as well. I'm sure he'll have.
These people are a nice couple. They're not fighting for the world. Yep. They don't want to be, they just want to be treated like human beings. And I think that, if you bring them in and talk to them, you'll meet the nicest couple you can ever meet. Pleasant, polite. They got nothing against the city. They hold no grudges. But they said, "How do we get out of this?" So that's all. Okay. Thank you.
As Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I had sent something forward. I don't know who would have it. Someone from Parks. Kathy. Thank you. It was regarding a lady wrote to us because she had a child that had passed away in one of our residents, and it's on childhood cancer. So we need to light something up, and I'm looking around at each one of you, figuring out which one it will be.
I don't think they meant on fire. They meant like using electrical lights.
John has got it wrong again. Kathy, have you found something we can light up?
This was a particular. Kathy, you want to step forward? Actually, we'll need the microphone here. We're broadcasting to folks at home, so I don't know if anybody can hear close to the microphone.
Staff have done some research and determined that it's fairly straightforward for us to reprogram the lights on the fountain and the pathway lighting for the day. We're not sure how clearly gold it'll be, but it'll be as close as we can get it.
Said would work. That's why I said yellow as well.
And I know the facilities team is working at identifying options for adjusting the lighting on the building itself, on City Hall, particularly on the Guild. There's some uplights on it. So that's where that stands.
Oh, that's going to be nice. Now, has anyone been in touch with her at all?
Not yet. We were waiting to be absolutely sure. But yes, I just got back to it. We can follow up.
The rest of the council, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Terry?
Sure. One of the great advantages of LED is you can adjust the color
Change
switch.
the color? Perfect. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cool. Love
For that
it.
matter, perhaps the nice folks over at Evergreen have some gold-colored gel for fluorescent or for floodlights. Great. Thank you very much.
And the last other business item is Councillor Hodge related to maintenance of the Riverview.
Slides on this, Jim. A couple of months ago, I raised with Council the concerns that our Riverview Lands Advisory Committee had raised about the condition of the Riverview grounds. At that time, we showed Council pictures of grass. The grass is actually taller than it looks. It's just sort of tipped over now. We just sort of hold there. This one for a second. Just maybe hold there for a second. Or the next one is fine too. Anywhere in here. Just at the time, we had been at least certainly I'd led to believe that that the grass cutting wall had been cut reduced in frequency, would still be done several times a year. And there was concern raised about the tree festival. And of course, the tree festival is coming up this weekend. And this is my tour of the grounds yesterday, how it looked. There's a couple patches that have been cut, the cemetery one. The other concern now is looking at these, we're also seeing in around the trees. We're starting to see invasive species growing in here. We're seeing blackberries right here, we hold here. This tree is now showing up in places. Going to the next slide here, we've also got damage to the trees. My concern is not that the lawn isn't being cared for, but I'm also worried now that maybe the trees themselves are not. We're starting to see litter accumulating in places under the trees. Trees that I suspect have just plain died. And I don't know if it's neglect or if this is the sort of thing that happens, but again, it would have been sort of removed from sight. The next, we're seeing windfall. This tree is just laying right across a piece of an oak tree, and the next, there's another view of it. It's just laying out in the front lawns in front of East Lawn. There's another one coming up this, I think it's Cottonwood or something. It's laying down near the highway. I think there's another view of it there. And on the next one, we can see we're actually now getting trees growing here. And as we go to the last slide, I think it's the last one here, we're actually getting a forest growing. And these trees are about 4 feet high, growing all through the grass. In fact, they're rooted so well, I couldn't even pull it out. It's, I think it's probably beyond the point now you can even tackle some of these with a lawnmower. So I'm really concerned, not only for, the upcoming tree fest, but also just that the grounds are not being maintained. And I'm concerned that possibly that the trees aren't being maintained. And, we know the grass isn't being cut, but in my view, I'm now afraid that the trees, as I said, that the trees aren't being cared for, but it's now appearing that the only thing being cut at Riverview is the maintenance budget. So I'm just sort of wondering if... Did you get that one? But I think that, I know that I don't know if Ms. Hunt has anything that she can add, or if we've had nothing from the ministry. I think certainly with UBCM coming up, that'll be a chance to sort of raise this with any provincial MLAs that we see, and sort of keep the message to the forefront. And in the meantime, I think it's going to be disappointing for people who are used to coming to the Tree Fest to see the shape that the grounds are going to be in. So I just wanted to draw this to Council's attention. I know that we have sent letters in this regard, and I know that Council, I think, feels the same. That this is just become an intolerable situation, and I think it's very just disheartening to see the grounds falling to the state.
Disheartening is the word. Yep. May.
Well, I'd like to take a few of these pictures, capture them on a single page, and I'd like to have a then and now brochure. I've got lots of then pictures, and a couple of these nows would be really great. What our government does for us. The tree collection alone was valued at some $50 million a few years ago. The tree collection on those lands alone, and it's just all going to hell in a handbasket, and that's really disgusting. Makes me angry. So I would like us to have a brochure that we can take to UBCM and hand it out.
Well, I will advise Council the elements that I can in this setting. We had BC Housing in my office a couple of days ago. There will be further advice on that in the next meeting. And the question was put bluntly, the property, the condition of the property. The reflection from Shane Ramsey, the CEO of BC Housing, says there are two elements to Riverview. The Riverview, use of Riverview is being examined by BC Housing, and the maintenance, though, of it is entirely in shared services. Shared services, of course, was told, as I guess every ministry would have been, to cut their budget, and from their perspective, this is a property that isn't being used, and therefore, I don't know that this is a grand design of anybody. This is simply, as you put it, a budget cut. I think it's sad, it's unfortunate, and well, it's worse than unfortunate. I think it's going to cause long-term damage to the property and the values, the heritage values that the government just established through its examination of the heritage values of the site. I've ridden my bike through it or driven through it several times over the course of the summer, and every time I get sad of the response they made to the last time I raised it here, which you couldn't find the fire hydrants anymore. Well, they cut around the fire hydrants, as you saw one of your pictures was around the fire hydrants. I have photos of a picnic table sitting in the middle of a lawn. But you can only see it if you look down on it, because looking sideways at it, the lawn is higher than the picnic table. Imagine how deep the overgrowth is at this point. invasive species is going to be a big problem. I think some of this is going to be hard to recover from, even if they were to try to cut it.
You think someone would be embarrassed, wouldn't you?
Thank you. Thanks. Well, it takes me back to the last time we talked about this, and the phrase that we used at the time was in reference to the buildings, but it's equally applicable to the grounds, and that's demolition by neglect. And shared services cut budget is one thing, but I have a little difficulty. When you cut your budget, you do it in accordance with priorities. There's clearly no priority for the preservation of Riverview, and the more that it moves into this state, the more it becomes clear that redevelopment's the next step. Once there's nothing left preserved, then the bulldozers come back. I think we have a pretty clear position on that, but we're not deeply in control. Just people who care. Thank you.
Councilor Spence.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, a couple of weeks ago I mentioned about maybe that we should cut the grass and build them with the regional government, or put it under tax notice, whatever it is. And I was told that it cannot be done. You know what? I'd like to get a legal opinion. What is it the city's power? What can we do? I mean, we certainly can't leave a place unsightly. I mean, there's residents that keep their yards unsightly. We walk in, give them 30 days, and if they don't clean it up, we clean it up and put it on their tax notice. In here, it looks like we're helpless, and I'd like to get a legal opinion of what is it that can we do? Do we have to take them to court? What is it that we have to do? Because certainly I don't want to live with that kind of, 220 acres looking like that, and like Council Nicholson said, it's destruction by the neglect. I mean, they're going to neglect it until the city gives up and say, okay, go ahead, put it in the housing and high rises or whatever you want. And you know what? I think it's a wrong way to do it.
Councilor, one thing I know we can do, and perhaps Councilor Hodge could take the lead on this because you're chair of the committee, is to use the Tree Fest as sort of a focal point to attract more attention to the issue there. So rather than this wrecking this year's Tree Festival, it could actually be used as a sort of a rallying point to say, you know, the Tree Fest is now threatened gravely by this neglect, and use some of the contacts in the media to bring out the weekend TV crews and things like that, because it's a big TV story. And there'll be a lot of people there, and you can bet that every one of the 1,000 or so people walking through the lands will have something to say. So it'll be a tremendous opportunity, I think, to shine a light on what's going on there. Regrettably, Councilor Nicholson and I will be spending the day at the new Evergreen Art Public Task Force with a day-long seminar. That day, we'll be there to support you, but I'd encourage you to do something on Saturday.
Doing your own work.
Doing our own work.
Okay. Thank you for raising those issues. Anything else? None? Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Councilor O'Neill, Councilor Nixon, all in favor? Opposed? Very unanimous.